Flag to the flag, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lori, please do a roll call.
Mayor Steve Feldman.
Here.
Councilmember Jerry DeBate.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Milbauer. Councilmember Robert Howard.
Here.
Councilmember Rich Squirrel.
Okay, I want to start this by saying there's a ordinance on the table tonight. We will not be able to do that. We'll have to. We don't have a four people here. We have a quorum, but not four. When we work this vote on an ordinance, so when we get to that point, we will delay that. Okay. All right. Do I have a motion tonight to accept tonight's agenda?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. DeBate makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second on Mr. Bauer. Any discussion? None? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to tonight's consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. DeBate makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Bauer makes that second. Any discussion? None? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to meeting open to the public.
All right. I apologize in advance if I mispronounce. Maria Lewinsky.
Yes, Mariah Lewinsky. Do I come up here?
Yep.
Yes. State your name and address for the records, please.
Mariah Lewinsky, 3211 22nd Avenue South, apartment 2, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Thank you for allowing me time to speak tonight. As you know, my name is Mariah Lewinsky. I'm a real estate agent with Integrity Realty. I'm here tonight to advocate on behalf of my client, David Barron, who owns a property located at 4006 The Gardner Circle in St. Francis. Facing foreclosure, David reached out to me a couple months ago to help him sell his property. He's had a rough year dealing with a breakup with his partner, who he has a 2-year-old son. David then moved some roommates in so he could afford to stay in the house. Those roommates are responsible now for not paying him rent and for forcing him into foreclosure. They are also responsible for a few violations, maybe totaling $600 for trash and illegally parked vehicles. Those fines have now ballooned to a very large amount of a $13,000 assessment being added to his 2019 taxes. I'm very nervous speaking in front of people, so I apologize.
That's okay. Take your time.
Now, it's taken David a long time to get to where he is today. He's done the right thing here and has removed the roommates from the property. He has spent a lot of time and effort cleaning up their mess. This process has taken him the greater majority of this year to complete. David reached out to the city offices looking for help to stop the fines. He tried to stop a sheriff's sale, and every time he was told, no, we can't help you, sorry, it's too late, there's nothing that can be done. Stuck in a hard place and getting bottom, he called me for help. He continues to do the right thing by taking the right steps to reach out for help and to try to move on from the situation. After reviewing the tax information online and seeing nothing about a $13,000 assessment, and reviewing his past due balance with the bank who listed this property for sale on November 1st. The sheriff's sale was scheduled to take place on November 15th. Within a week, we received a purchase agreement that would allow him to complete the sheriff's sale payoff. There is no equity in this property, and he has only been there for 2 years. We have made it through the inspection contingency. David has completed all the required repairs to move forward with the sale. The closing date is scheduled for December 21st, just before Christmas. And to add to this morning I received notice of the House Appraising, which is great news. My title company gave me notice that they received the $13,000 assessment from the city of St. Francis just the day before Thanksgiving. They informed me that if this can't be reduced or forgiven, that we will be forced to cancel our purchase agreement, and that David will be forced to foreclose on his home. I immediately asked David to go back to the city offices to speak to somebody. I also started making phone the city finance director, who informed me I would not have found the $13,000 online. I would have had to have called to find that. And also to the Youngstown County tax offices to try and resolve the issue. With both our efforts in seeking help and solutions to the situation, we were both told the same thing: sorry, there's nothing we can do to help you. And from my point of view, the city seems to have no programs in place to help homeowners that find themselves in this situation. I strongly urge the city to consider such programs for the low-income homeowners. Not everyone is good at advocating for themselves, and there is little to no education out there for homeowners that find themselves in situations like this. And I would add for myself as well, even as a real estate agent. With the greater good of the community in mind, allowing abatements on this property, the city will be gaining new tax-paying homeowners that will maintain this property for years to come. New taxpayers that will have children that will go to St. Francis schools and will be a part of the city community. By not allowing an abatement, the city will force David into foreclosure, and then who knows what will happen to this property. I have a purchase agreement with me, as well as photos of the cleaned up property for you to review. I thank you for your time and your consideration to do the right thing and allowing these new homeowners to take possession of this property come December 21st. Yeah. Photos, a letter from the title company, some contact information, and the fully executed purchase agreement. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Well, first of all, let me state, as I stated before, on November 5th at our last abatement meeting, this is one of the least things this council likes to do, talk about abatements. None of us got elected to do just that, but it comes with the territory and the job. So, what I don't understand, some of the questions I have is, I have a sale price at two different prices. Is it 165 or 163?
The sale price is $165, and there's $2,500 seller concessions that was negotiated in.
Okay. And there was a good sized amount of money put down, I understand from what I see here. I can't say it, no.
I'm not speaking for the buyers, I'm speaking for my seller, so I don't know how much is done.
All right. So what I want to know is, if usually what happens with abatements, from my knowledge anyways, is all sellers end up paying the abatement to the purchase price. Okay? What ends up going to the buyer, of course, and the seller rather, would be how much equity they have built up, and if their abatement is less than that, so they walk away with something. Usually what happens with the abatement process, if they don't have a lot of equity built up, but they sell the price and they wash the abatement away, they walk away even. What I understand here is you're telling me that if the sellers don't get a reduction of this, the buyers rather, they won't buy the house?
Why would the buyers take on a $13,000 assessment?
Because that's the purchase price. And whatever it comes down to as far as the abatement being involved in the purchase price, their price is this amount of dollars for that property. Whether it's broken down to past tax or whatever, it's in that price. You have the option to reduce the price or maintain the price, but that's how that really works in the real world that I'm involved in 25 years of doing building and selling houses. That's just my opinion on that. My other thought is, by the way, is that it's been a month since we had our open hearing on abatements. Why did it take a month for him to come forward? And I'm asking this question here. Two, we've had one administration notice, 10 citations, and one finance notice, 12 notices that were put together on this property. We had one on 6/6, 6/26, 7/5, all the way from June 6th, actually May 16th was the first notice, but those were potential fines, not actual fines at that time. And started 6/6 and started fining all the way down to 9/5. My question to him is, on 6/6, when you had a fine of $100, why didn't you come in at 6/7? On 6/26, when you had a fine of $200, why didn't you come in on 6/27? On 7/5, why didn't you come in at 7/6, and so on and so forth, and talk to us? As I stated at the last meeting after the abatements, we don't generate revenue by fining people. We generate revenue by promoting growth and increasing our tax base through increasing residential projects or commercial projects. But we don't do it by fining people. That's not how we get roads plowed and all that, by fining people. So what I want to know is,
Can I answer your first question?
Please.
Continue.
Yeah.
Title company ran some preliminary numbers for me. I have not received final numbers from them. Those preliminary numbers show that if we listed the house at 160, with his past due amount and his sheriff's sale payoff, he would be breaking zero. So we listed it at 165, knowing that it may be on the market for another month, which we're already into December. There's gonna be another month's worth of mortgage. And if you try to stop the sheriff's sale from happening, so now we have sheriff's sale fines and lawyer fees that are being charged to him as well. So at 165, he may end up paying in the end. So that's why I'm asking for the abatement. As far as addressing why didn't he come to you sooner, I don't know. Why is somebody so overwhelmed when they're facing foreclosure and bad roommates in a situation that maybe they're not so good at dealing with in life to begin with? All I know is that he has followed my advice very clearly and has removed the roommates, which we're still in process of moving out when we listed the house on November 1st. They are still removing their personal property as a property, and everything has to be out of there by the 21st. He's done a great job of cleaning the property up. He's done a great job of doing all the required repairs to move past his inspection contingency and get this house sold, whether he loses money on the deal or makes $10. That's where we're sitting.
Right, but you understand something here. I mean, you know, again, I mean, abatements are a tough issue. I understand that. But this has been a 4-month time frame. And I know talking multiple times with meetings with my community development director, yeah, he'd come in on any one of those dates as I mentioned and told us that he was doing something and that showing remediation of the problem, we would stop finding to see that progress was being done. Again, our option is not to get out here, our choice is not to find to get it done. Only stick we have or big cloud we have is to find to get some notice from that person to make a change.
He did walk into the offices to ask for some help or to at least address some of the fines that were coming in, and he had the door slammed on him.
When did he do that?
When was it, David?
The first time I got a fine for a boat that I parked on a cement slab next to my
And
garage.
do you have an idea what month that might be? June, July, August? September?
July.
Do you know who you talked to?
I
Up to the microphone.
Yeah. Why don't you come to the microphone?
Just for the minutes.
Yeah.
I walked up to, I just went into City Hall and I just asked why I was getting fines for a boat that I had parked next to my garage that was on cement. And they just kept coming in, and I honestly didn't know what to do.
But when you're saying to me that someone slammed the door in your face, ever since this council came in 2 years ago, whatever happened before, I might believe that, but I don't believe that now, because I know how this council and staff work today. And the one thing we do is listen to the residents. Again, we've always said we research any issue brought to our attention. We also look into it fully. We may give the answer that you want to hear, maybe not give the answer you want to hear, but we give you a truthful, honest, researched answer. So I don't believe at all that someone slammed the door and said they couldn't help you. Not at $100 to $200.
I followed up his visits to Anoka County and the city with phone calls, and I was told no.
And I know the county you did?
Yeah, the Anoka County tax offices, I spoke with Darcy at the finance director's office. She said, sorry, there's nothing that can be done.
At what date
Decisions
did
have
you
already
do
been
it?
made.
4 months later or 4 months earlier?
Just recently. So if I'm being told no now, there's nothing that can be done, there's no programs in place.
But Mariah,
This is
that's-
our last.
I understand.
Reach out for help.
Believe me, I understand
Right.
exactly here. I mean, we had a 2-hour abatement hearing on this, which did not make my day or staff's day, sitting here listening to all this, okay? Because, you know, I want to be fair, firm, and square here, but I can tell you, plausible deniability and ignorance is not an excuse here, okay? Because any one of these dates here could have been brought forth and you could have stopped this. You could have emailed me directly. You could have called me. That's all on the website. And many people do call me, and I respond all the time. I'm just saying to you, you have to take some responsibility on yourself. This got here because you didn't do some things that you should have done when you should have done it. If a door closes to you, I can tell you, at 68 years old, when a door closes to me, I find another door to get in. And I keep knocking the doors down until I get a response. So if Kate didn't answer yourself, or Darcy did, or so-and-so did, you can find one of us to do it to. You found us to email it right now with all that you sent to us, didn't come to us. And you're here right now. Not by agenda, you're here because we're allowed, for a meeting open to the public, we want to hear about this. So
Now, Mr. Mayor,
just a second.
it's,
Just a minute. So understand that part of it, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. No, Jerry, go ahead.
I believe what Darcy was talking about is, after the abatement hearing and the council votes to, you know, assess the abatements onto the property, you know, that's what Darcy's talking about, since the council's already voted on it. Before that abatement hearing, then the council has a little bit more leeway whether or not we would do something, but, you know, the vote has already taken place, and it's my understanding it's already been submitted to the county. So next year, it's going as property taxes. That's kind of how it works.
This property will be in foreclosure, and the sheriff's sale's already passed due with November 15th, so what happens to this assessment in the case of foreclosure?
I'm not sure. You know, I think the issue we're having here is the timing issue. When you had called and didn't see anything on the website, or the property tax, county property tax,
Yeah,
it was right in transition before, we had submitted it before they entered it. You know, so I'm sure there's a little bit of a lag there. But, you know, it's my understanding it's there, because I think Darcy has spoken to me about this.
I looked online, I have a printout actually of the tax, the property tax.
I believe you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that there was, you know, some issue with the timing. One thing that's kind of frustrating is, you know, this is the first time I've ever seen David. I mean, to my knowledge, he's never contacted me. He's never come before the council. He could have been here at the abatement hearing. You know, there was.
We didn't even have a purchase agreement at that time, and until title gave me notice just before Thanksgiving, I didn't know about the assessment. I can't attest as to why this young man didn't tell me about it. I did my due diligence, we listed the house, we have new tax-paying homeowners that are trying to take possession of this property, and we can't do it without this.
How our notices go.
Let me just ask you one thing here, Jerry, please. Let me ask you one thing. Why did it take a sale of the house to get him to come forward? I mean, for 4 months, you know, I mean, whether there was a sale or not, the abatements were coming. And again, the time frame shows from June on, and May 16th, when there was potential fines. If you had a problem anytime that, you take away off the table the sale price. And
I think we've learned a lot of lessons here, moving forward in our future lives, but if I was facing foreclosure and receiving notices that large amount, I would probably feel a little overwhelmed and personally not know what to do. This is personally my first time ever dealing with an abatement request, and it's my first city council meeting ever in my career as a real estate agent. And I'm not a homeowner, so why would I know about this stuff? I'm learning now, educating myself now, and that's great. So I'm not trying to use the lack of education as an excuse. I'm saying I'm learning now, and I will use that, and David will use that going forward in our future lives.
Well, Jerry, excuse me for interrupting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now my train of thought kind of derailed.
It'll come back.
I guess what I'm saying is, the notices are sent out, they're sent out to the address on the property, and then in addition, they're also sent out to the address that's listed at Anoka County, the owner of record. You know, just in case, you know, the owner is renting the property to somebody and the owner doesn't actually live at that residence. You know, so, you know, if David's the owner,
The Anoka County told me that this has not yet been recorded with them at all, that this is still at the city level.
well,
It's been sent over, according to Darcy.
it's there. We don't have any control over how fast the county enters their data.
They said this end of December into January, so.
Okay, but the city's responsible to give them the data by a certain date, and that's why the abatement hearing was a month ago, because we had to get all that data and send it to the county to make sure they had it by a certain date. Darcy?
I did send them to the county on, I'm pretty sure it was November 15th. And then it takes them a while to enter them all into the system, so they don't show up online for quite a while.
You know, so I do sympathize with the position that you're at. I think it's a timing issue. But whether or not.
I will do better diligence in the future, maybe start calling the city instead of looking online.
Yeah, and because the city doesn't know if there's a pending sale. I mean, we wouldn't know. So, I mean, why, and we're not going to call realtors and say, oh, just so you know, this is going, you know, it's kind of the, I don't want to say buyer beware type of a thing.
I don't usually come across such large assessments in Minneapolis. When we do, it's something that's easily dealt with at a closing table. This is a very large amount that is forcing us to cancel our purchase agreement and forcing him into foreclosure. So that's why we're asking for it.
Well,
To at least be reduced, maybe down to the original amount, or to work with our title company in the sale, to come to an agreement as to what would be appropriate in the final numbers when she does call and request the sheriff's sale payoff. And when we do add this to the final numbers, what would be a fair amount coming from the sale so that he is breaking even?
Well, that's what I'd like to talk to you about right now with these numbers here I have here, because I have the outstanding mortgage number, I have the sheriff's sale number, and then I have the purchase price. Okay, so what I want to know is, if the outstanding mortgage is 142.3, the sheriff's sale was 134.4, am I right on these numbers?
Mayor, the 134.4 is what's on the sheriff's certificate
Okay.
that was filed.
And you're selling it for 165,000, I understand?
165
Right, minus?
minus 2,500
Minus, okay, so,
minus 6% for real estate agent fees.
right, I want to,
And then minus the 134 payoff sale, and then what are the lawyer fees involved in it? And then we have closing costs,
so,
which is
let
another
me just,
3%.
I want to get these numbers so I have them right here. 163, is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay, and then minus, what'd you say on?
6% for commission,
As well, just about 45, some 48 something?
about $9,000, so that's the half that goes to my broker and the other half goes to the.
I thought I saw 3% one side only, but I thought I saw.
Yep, and the other 3.3% goes to my broker.
Okay,
it's half and
so,
half.
so basically, okay, so you're talking just about, say roughly just $10,000.
Yep.
All right, and then we got down to 153, so then we've got, some closing costs,
3%, another 3%.
another 3%.
Yep.
3. Wow, that's, okay, that's negligible, okay. I thought it was
Everybody likes to get their fingers in the deal when it comes to real
Oh,
estate.
I know how that works, trust me, I know how that works.
Mr. Mayor, while you're at it,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm all about trying to make this work to get the sale of the home, so I get tax money, and the city gets tax money. It is a bad situation. I'm an advocate for trying to figure out what the title company would accept, where all these numbers line up. If it's 10,000, 9,000, whatever that number is, taking that as a settlement for the fines. That's what I'm agreeable to, but I don't know what those numbers look like. I don't know if there's any process to undo the assessment already. That's where we're restricted.
Well, and I've come with these numbers, I need to round it off, because I took it at 5,000, 10,000, I took out the thing, and I'm down to 134,325, the sheriff's sale is 134,4.
So he's making zero money on the sale of his property.
Well, and I can tell you something, if you walked away not owing anything, that would be something. That would be something.
Yeah.
But, you know, and again, you know, and this here, I'm trying to get this around my head is, how did a sale make the difference here for him to get motivated? When I can just tell you from my experience, if I got a fine of $100 to $500, I'd be at the city knocking doors down until I got an answer why I'm getting fined. I just would do that. I would never, and I've seen the pictures of the property. I saw the pictures that you sent us that was nicely cleaned up and all that, but I saw the flatbed trailer, the four-wheelers, the boats, cars, garbage everywhere. All that stuff I saw, what happened, you know, I
Those
mean,
roommates moved out first week of November. They were still in process of, it's on my notes in the listing if you look at it online. The roommates are in process of moving out. For my advice, to get the roommates out for the sale, we need this house to be as empty as possible so it can sell, right?
but what about the neighbors around him and the complaints we've had from call-ins? We just didn't go to his house, just didn't, you know, we have a complaint-based type of code compliance. So we had calls on this, of people called complaining about their neighborhood and the looks of this place around their neighborhood. This is a city lot in the city district. This isn't rural, this is urban. So, you know, I'm not trying to be mean here or hard here. I'm just trying to understand the facts here. You're trying to come on the sympathy of the council, But the notices were put out in plenty of time. Abatement hearing was here, again, a 2-hour abatement hearing. Well, we listened to people for 2 hours and listened to everything they had to say. We gave more than enough time to do just that. And again, this is one of the things the council doesn't like to deal with. I know I don't like to deal with this. And I'm just saying to you, now it comes down to is, well, he won't walk away with this and he won't walk away with this. So I'm just asking you, why didn't you come to us when this was workable, 500? If you didn't know that you could talk to any one of them, you could have emailed us or called us. I mean, I have a phone number, each one of these gentlemen does too, and an email address. And you could have talked directly to me, and I can guarantee you, we do respond. We really do. You can ask anyone that's ever emailed me, if we respond. So some of this has got to fall on your shoulders and not just us. You're making ourselves look like the bad guys, and we didn't create the problem.
We learned a lot of lessons here, I think, both of us.
Well, believe me, I learned a lot of lessons in my life too, not nice ones, you know. But I'm just saying to you, and again, here's
And I
this.
understand, so thank you for pointing that out. I do.
Well, I mean, and then of course then it's a compounded deal because there's other people before you that said, basically came on the mercy of the council too, by the way. And all them had, some of these were 4 years in the making. Some of them, came down to one individual who had an older child in the house making the problem for them. You, in your case, it was roommates and stuff and things like that. But I mean, why did it take so long to get rid of the roommates? I mean, change your locks, get rid of them. I mean, there's ways to do it. I just don't understand why now all of a sudden it's come down to sale prices the way the motivation to get this moved. I just don't get that. Because these fines will be enough motivation to get me up and running.
He has a 2-year-old son to raise, and he has to go rent an apartment, and with a foreclosure on your record, that doesn't look good. He's trying to do the right thing by setting a good example for his son and his family and trying to move on.
I don't deny that. I don't deny that at all, and I commend that. I'm just saying to you, the right thing to do would have been to come a little quicker, a lot quicker.
Well, I'm sorry that we did not do that, and had I done the picture sooner than I would have helped, or had I known about this, I would have come forward a lot sooner.
So when did he call you about the sale of the house? I mean, from May 16th till September 5th that I have here, or November 5th when we actually had that hearing. So when in that time frame did you talk to your realtor?
So I'd say I probably reached out about the beginning of October, and we listed November 1st.
Okay, and I have fine times from May 16th was with potential 6/6 when it started fine up to 9/5. So he didn't even notify you until all these fines had been already mailed out and put in place. That's when he notified you.
Well, I would be better about asking questions, listing houses going forward. Like I said, I don't come across such large assessments like this, and when I do come across an assessment, I can typically find that information online in the city.
No, I understand that completely. I understand what you would do with your professional ability once you got noticed. But 9/5 is the last of the citations, and you didn't get notified until October. So all this got accumulated before he threw out the life jack, or whatever you want to call it, to get you involved. Okay? When all that time, what we're saying is he could have come and got involved with any of us at any one time. Any one of the 5 members here, which 2 aren't here today, but we all have email addresses, we all have phone calls, all phone numbers, we're all there. It's right on the website. All you have to do is click on it, go to government, click down, it tells you all about us.
So we have those names and numbers now. He has them.
Mr. Mayor,
Please, what did I say, Rob, please?
You were just talking, there is a process that you can do an abatement. You would have to you'd have to make a resolution if you decided to do it. But there is a process to writing it down.
To take it back from the county.
Yes. But you would have to do the abatement and then make a special resolution. So there is a process. for
Is it an all or nothing? Do we take, or do we reduce?
I've only had to do it once, and and that was, the council moved the whole thing. So,
I actually just work with the title company in hopes that we can at least get the original funds paid.
All right. I have one other question here as a contractor, and dealing with this for many times with realtors over the years. Is it possible, and I'm just asking this, is it possible, I mean, you're charging 3% on each side, 6%, can you go down to 5% or 4.5% to make the deal work? Can there be some concessions on your side to make this work, seeing as you're so close?
This would be my broker's decision, not mine, and I've already gone well above and beyond for this young man here, so reducing how much I get paid, I don't think would be fair. Would I ask you to take less income on your job?
If it made a deal here, if I could make it happen, would I be receptive to it? If it would make it happen, yes, I would. And by the way,
I don't
we're not talking about that, ma'am. We're talking about, you're telling us that we should take away this abatement here so that you can get a sale to bring a new person into residence for taxpayers, blah, 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 and then, yeah. And then I'm saying to you is,
The buyer's broker as well, so I would have to reach out to her broker, and I would have to reach out to my broker for an answer. Yeah. Because we're already sold and those numbers have been locked in and they've been, made public. So I can't just change the buyer's agent's commission now that the deal has been signed. She won't allow it.
No, I understand that. From our perspective is the city of St. Francis, we don't have a code enforcement officer. What we do is we have a complaint-based system. If somebody sees something that's unsafe or, something that's been neglected, they'd call the city and we would send an inspector out there to see if it actually violates our codes. If it does violate the codes, then we send out a warning letter. That's the letter that got sent out in May, saying that, there's an issue, somebody has complained, and this has got to be taken care of. If nothing happens, the last thing you want to do is ignore it, because if nothing happens, then the fines come. It's kind of like if you get a speeding ticket and you don't go to court, you don't pay the fine. They just don't forget about it. I mean, it's there, and things escalate quickly, and that's kind of what happened is we kept sending out these notices saying we've got an issue here, and from our perspective, the homeowners blatantly disregarded them. Now the city has considerable cost actually into this already, because doing these investigations and paying for somebody to go out there and stuff like that, it costs money. Nobody works for free. And that's one of the reasons why we do a complaint-based system, is because with this administrative hearing process and the administrative fines, the people that are actually costing the city money, or is actually the people that are paying for it as well. And in this case, David is one of those people, and he's up to the max. I mean, he's got 10 citations plus the warning letter. And if it was, hey, your boat can't be parked there, to me the issue is real easy as well. Let's just move the boat.
I don't think the roommates were so easy to deal with over the course of the year.
Well, his roommates aren't paying the bill.
Yeah.
And I do. And I understand sometimes trying to get rid of a roommate is not an easy thing. I mean, I've had, my kids have moved out and they've moved back, and sometimes me trying to get rid of my kids out of my house, or my own kids, is difficult. So I do understand that, and I sympathize.
It took the sale to get the roommates out of the house.
But as a homeowner, ultimately the buck has to stop at the homeowner.
We know that now. We learned that lesson.
well,
Because your roommates aren't going to be paying. I mean, if they'll pony up and pay the fine, that'd be great. But I don't see that happening. I've had people break my stuff and borrow my stuff, and they bring it back. I borrowed one of my friends a trailer, and he brought it back with a broken tail that he backed into something, and I had to pay for that. So in hindsight, I've learned, hey, don't borrow anything out, or because they're not going to be paying to fix it, and your roommates are real similar.
but the question I have is why did it take a sale to get rid of your roommates? I mean, if they're not doing what the house is under your rules, okay? It's your house, you're the landlord. You have your rules, about clean up after yourself, wiping the shower down, whatever your rules are. So when they're not living up to your rules, why would it take a sale of the house to get rid of them? I just don't understand that.
Living with bad roommates is a really stressful situation, and not everybody is good at advocating for themselves. I wouldn't want to sit and fight with my roommates over something for a year. How incredibly stressful is that? I would rather pack my bags and leave my own property that I own. And I don't own property that way.
Rob, do you have anything else to say about this?
I know the city doesn't have $13,675 worth of assessments in this work to try and get this cleaned up. The place is cleaned up, actually he's learned his lesson, he's actually moving out. Maybe we get better tenants in, maybe we don't, who knows, that's not my call to make. Like I said, I'm advocating, I don't know the entire process to reduce this or see what the title company can conform to reach this. Is there a fine amount in there? I believe so, because he needs to know that that was the wrong approach. Obviously, I don't think we're gonna get this
If I take
changed.
that hit off my commission, then let's do that.
Say that again, ma'am?
If I take that hit off my commission, then let's do that. I've also worked really hard on this deal, so I would like to make a commission someplace. I can talk to my broker and ask her to put something in writing.
And all the
We don't
numbers you
always
have
follow
are
numbers
still
until the title company.
to the title company, and the title company, my understanding, won't move forward until,
It's, I printed out an email, she, told me on the phone that the sheriff's sale doesn't want to request the payoff until 14 days prior to closing. So she wanted to wait until after this meeting to see if he's gonna be able to even move forward with the sale before requesting that, which he has to pay for out of pocket. Unless you can write me a copy.
Well, you know, David, when you got these letters from the city, did you not see the total amount, dollar amounts on the letters? You had to see it. I saw it.
them, and every time I got, like, the letter with pictures, I was doing everything to try to get cleaned up, and all the trailer that had a bunch of stuff on it. I had nowhere to put it, and I was actively trying to get it off the property. I just had nowhere to put it.
Well, whose boat was it?
Well, the boat was one of my roommates.
And the trailer, the flatbed?
The flatbed was mine, and I did get it out of there, and I got it up.
So my question to you is, why didn't you call Kate Dunstrom, our community development director, and say, you know, I'm trying to get rid of the trailer, but I can't get rid of it right now, I don't have a place to move it, but I am working on it. Well, did you ever do that? I mean,
I did not, this is the first time I've ever had to do this, so I really didn't know. Yes, I should have asked a lot more questions.
see, the problem I have with this, by the way, and I'm just speaking in my opinion here, you know, that, again, as I stated before, plausible deniability and ignorance is not an excuse. I mean, it's one thing if you get one notice, it's another thing if you get two notices, it's another thing you get 10 citations, one administration notice, and one finance notice. I mean, that's 12 over 4 months. I mean, you know, you could say to me, well, I didn't know. Yeah, you don't know. I mean, I understand that, but at the same time, there's got to be a time where you start asking questions of somebody.
You've emphasized this now many times, and you're a tough man, Steve, and I appreciate that. So what's the answer you're looking for?
Well, I'm looking at the fact that I went through abatements for other people, and I heard basically a story in a similar way about them and their problems. And I'm saying to yourself, I mean, it's like...
We are not them, we are our...
I understand that. I mean, I understand that. You know, I've been in situations in my life, by the way, where I built a building and the economy took it, and I ended up having to go to foreclosure too. So I've been through foreclosure. I know what that's like. But after 5 years, I got my credit back and I worked hard and I did that. So yeah, you can do it. And I'm not trying to be hard here, but I'm just saying to you, you know, when I had this building property, let's give you an example here. When I called the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation of America, you know what they told me to do? File bankruptcy. That's what they told me to do, the federal level.
You know what this young single father filed for bankruptcy?
I don't want him to do anything. What I wish he would have done at $100, I wish he would have come and talked to us, one of us would pay the $100.
And
So
right
I
now,
wish.
I wish he had done that too, but...
I wish, but I can't change that. I'm just saying to you, I mean, you know, it's just that you know, we all have our headaches in life, you know. So to say to me that you're learning now, I understand that. We all learn the hard way. A lot of times that happens. I know it happens in my life, but at the same time here, you know, how do we do this for him and then go back to other people and say, well, we couldn't do it for you?
I don't have an answer for that other than this is just extremely circumstantial with me as a real estate agent not knowing about that $13,000. And the house selling.
I'm not putting anything on you, ma'am. I'm not putting anything on you, ma'am. You came in in October. The fines were already up till September 5th. So they were already in place before you got on board. The ship was sinking when you got on.
In your opinion, is this situation punishable enough to foreclose on this young man?
Well, I don't understand how it's gonna come, because my numbers here are so close here, he may not walk away with anything, but he won't be walking away with bad credit if he sells it for break even, in my opinion, from what I've seen with the numbers.
Are you
So,
going to allow that? Because you seem to be continuing to argue your
I don't, first of all, I don't like you insinuating that I'm being hard here. I'm trying to put the facts to work here, okay? You're trying to go on the mercy of the council, saying that you came in October. There's been 4 months before you came on, the boat was sinking when you came on.
I know, but you've said this now at least 4 times in a row.
And you may hear it 4 more times.
You're allowed to be tough here, you're the mayor.
I'm trying to be tough here. This is one of the worst things I have to do as a mayor completely. I mean, I'd rather do anything else but this right now.
You've done the right thing to clean up the property, and now it's up to you to decide if it's a punishable enough offense to send this man into foreclosure.
You know, from my perspective, I don't think it's the city's position to pick and choose who goes into foreclosures. I think that obviously there's some issues there that's not brought on by the city. I mean, there's some other things going on in his life and with roommates and him and his partner splitting up and stuff. And that's none of the city's business. I think what the city's business is, you know, the administrative fine that's levied, and I think what the city needs to do is determine whether or not we levied them correctly, and if they are levied correctly, I think we assess for it. You know, I don't think that this situation is any different than any of the other 7 properties that we dealt with. In fact, I think this situation is actually a little bit worse because this is the first we're hearing of David. You know, rather than having him come to the administrative hearing when that happened, you know, which was a month ago.
Well, I wish that I had known about it then and I would come forward, but we just listed the house, so we didn't have a purchase agreement in place yet, and I didn't know about the assessment yet, so I couldn't advocate for David at that point in time.
And I understand that, and I'm not trying to be hard. What I'm trying to do is be fair, not only to David, but also to the people that, you know, we have levied fines with in the past.
Yeah, 17.
17. There were 17 properties at a month ago, and we sat and listened to a lot. A lot of the people never showed up, you know, and a lot of them did. But you know, this isn't the first time. This is the first time that, you know, we've tried to levy fines in the middle of a pending sale. It's the first time we've done that, but it's not the first time that somebody's come to us with a bad story, and you know, everybody's got a bad story, and this isn't the first year we've done these fines either. We've put this program in place, you know, several years ago. So
yeah. There are positive things coming from this sale. And I'd like to point those out again. They're giving new taxpayers on this property. A nice young couple that wants to take ownership of this property.
Man, that will happen no matter what through a foreclosure. Eventually the property will sell.
Well, and you know, from the city's perspective, I mean, I love to see new neighbors, and because they're actually not that far from me. You know, I love to see new neighbors, but even if the house goes into foreclosure, there's still a property owner. In this case, it'd be the bank, and the bank would pay the property taxes. Now, somebody owns the property, whether or not David's living there or not, and they pay the fines, or they pay and you know, we do fine banks too if houses go into foreclosure and stuff like that, if they don't cut the grass. You know, we send out fines, and we levy that against even foreclosed properties too. It's not just properties that have homeowners, you know, living there. But you know, somebody pays the property taxes. So from a city perspective, it doesn't matter who owns it. From a community perspective, I'd much rather see, you know, a great couple live in my neighborhood than some bank owning it and sending out somebody once every 3 months to mow the grass, to be honest with you.
6-month redemption period and then a 6-month eviction period.
Yeah, so
Correct, the same.
you know, but from my perspective, you know, I'm interested in being fair with David. I'm interested in also being fair with everybody who's been through this process in the past. And if they say, you know, well, I had bad stuff going on, how come you guys didn't cut me a deal? I just,
Because we're asking nicely.
well, they asked nicely too. But, you know,
Everybody for that effort, we're trying to do the right thing here.
Can I ask a question of Kate here? Did the city follow its policies and finding numbers properly?
Mayor and council, we did follow code, as we have with our code enforcement process that allows up to 20 days. But staff cannot exceed that number. We have the worst case scenarios where the city could fine on a per day basis if we had an extreme situation. So we were within the parameters of the codes when they were sending out these orders.
And the dollar amounts are within our policies today.
Correct. Mayor and council, the amounts escalate based on the code number, and those were followed.
So one of the questions I have here, as I've stated before, and you may hear it again, okay, is through this period of time, David, before you talked to your realtor, okay, and you started getting these letters here, and it started getting up to $1,100 or whatever, which is an ouch to me anyways, what did you think? What was your reaction to it? Besides thinking about getting rid of the trailer, the flatbed, getting rid of the four-wheelers, getting rid of your roommates, did you discuss it with your roommates and say, hey, you guys are not helping me, you're hurting me, we gotta do something? Did you say anything like that to them at all? Did you?
Yeah, I told them that I need their stuff moved so I don't get any more fines.
And what did they say to you?
And they just said, why don't you just go fight the fines? Because a lot of them, I feel are from that, when I went through my boat that was parked on like the pavers. I don't know if that was noticed in any of the pictures, but when I read the offense, and it sounded like that I had parked illegally. From what I was reading.
Well, you could have called the city up to find out what the clarification of that policy is. Again, you could have talked to somebody here. So I'm just saying to you, so you're basically over the time frame from gathering anyways, that your roommates weren't receptive to working with you or helping.
Yeah.
That much I can get. So did you ever think about eviction notices or changing locks or whatever? Or, I mean, obviously, I hope they were paying your rent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was getting rent most of the time. I mean, one of them was my friend, and I was trying to help him out. I'm kind of I don't want conflict. Kind of easy going, I'm nice, and I guess I'm just a little too nice because I screwed myself over.
Well, I can't say I've never been there in my life because I have, but I just want to also tell you, Mariah, that the council is listening to this, which we didn't put on the agenda. We gave you plenty of time here, and we are now. So I want you to understand that this, if we were really being hard, we would have just said, don't even come to me.
Right, no, I appreciate the time, and thank you for the time.
We are doing that. So, like I say again, because as Jerry said, and as I'm showing you right now, we had at that abatement there was 17 properties on the docket, 17, and actually only 2 showed up, Jerry. 2 showed up.
Well, a lot of people showed up.
Or
There
they talked.
was, talk about it.
Well, 2 talked.
Yeah, there was a public hearing for all these.
And we had a 2-hour public hearing on it, and then what I'm saying to you is, you understand that we heard stories similar to this, not exactly like this, but other things about type thing that they thought they should get washed their abatement, I'll put it like that. So, but again, if we do for you, then what about them? And that, I understand your position, your situation, but again, I'm just trying to get around this. She comes on in October, she gave you some good advice, she helped you out. But it would have been a lot better if you'd talked to us earlier, gotten her earlier. I just don't understand why a sale of a house makes the difference on the reason for taking out the abatements when these problems were enforced. The city followed policy, they followed code, they followed their timelines. their dollar amount time, points of view in that, as far as the amounts in that. So I mean, at any one of those times, from June throughout to September, all you had to do was, talk to us. And I know you're an easygoing guy, I can see that. But a phone call is a good thing, and the dumbest questions are when you don't ask. So you just need to ask. I mean, you're going to roommates, but your roommates aren't helping. That's a dead end to me. So the ways to come to is talk to us. You could have even called, our chief of police up about how to get rid of roommates. You might have been able to give us some direction on that. I mean, I'm saying you have to take some responsibility on yourself. I want to see the sale go through for you, but at the same time, it's like for instance, when we're up here, we have a whole city to deal with. I mean, it's just not one out of 7,500, it's 7,500. I always deal on the premise, my thought is to do what's right for the majority of our residents, because I can't make everybody happy, I just can't do that. But I try to do the majority of that the best I can, and I try to research answers, look at the issues and try to give an honest answer, whether it be the ones you want to hear or the one you don't want to hear, as I stated before. And I think this is what the council members think the same way. But at the same time, we have a bigger, broader picture here. So you're asking us to make a change here when there was plenty of time for you to help us to help you, I guess I'll put it like that. If you had come to us at that abatement hearing, that would have been one thing. If you had come to us a month or two before that, if you not have waited so long, we might have been able to do something that could help you. But at this particular point in time, I myself don't know how that could happen, because I got to deal with 16 other people that are going to hear about this and create a can of worms here that's ridiculous. Everybody had their day in court. You're having an extra day in court that they didn't have. So, like I say again, this is one of the hardest things I have to do. So, Rob, do you have anything else to say about this?
Not really. I've advocated for the reduction to see what that number could be within the fine, within the closing costs or the sale. I don't think we're going to get there tonight, so I do apologize.
Okay, what's the next step for me then?
Well, just a second, right? Jerry, you have anything further to say on this issue?
Well, I think if the city's gonna do something, I think we should do something tonight. If we go any longer, it is gonna be on their taxes. If we just arbitrarily, should we just arbitrarily knock off, half or 40%, 30% or whatever, or keep it the way it's at?
Well, then I would suggest you look at this.
Yeah. No,
And you can look at that too, because you're going to have a lot of explaining to do.
I understand. I'm just, I do respect Councilmember Bauer's opinion. I just differ in his opinion that I think if the council is going to do something, we should do something that, sooner than later.
I need to cancel this purchase agreement if it needs to be canceled, so I can't let these homeowners who now pay for inspection and pay for appraisal and who believe that they're purchasing this property in 3 weeks and closing now.
Can I
Continue to believe it.
Right, can I ask you a question about that? The buyers, okay, now that, when were they told about this abatement?
They haven't been told about it. I represent the sellers. I don't represent the buyers.
So,
The sellers,
as far
the buyers
as,
agent.
but as far as they're concerned, the purchase price is the same. Their purchase price of 163 is 163, whether they know about the abatements or whether they don't know about the abatements, that's the sale price. And they've agreed upon that.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of how that money trickles down to the individual closers, mortgage company, sheriff's sale, whatever, that all trickles down. But as far as they're concerned, it's the 163 they're paying. They're not paying 163 plus the abatement, they're paying 163 including the abatement, because that's in the sale price. So what I'm saying to you is, why would they be pulling out when all they're gonna pay is 163? I mean, I don't get it, they're not paying anymore.
My title company, he pays the $13,000 for the 2019 taxes according to this purchase agreement, not the buyers.
The seller pays the abatement out of the purchase price he will get from the buyer. So the buyer pays 163.
It's not there, you did the math.
I know, it's not there. I understand it was very close to being there, but not there. If you walk away, like I said, if he walks away breaking even on this, and he's learned a big lesson here, I consider that a win-win-win all the way around.
I would have maybe listed the house a little bit more had I looked online and found that $13,000 listed sooner to try and make up for this, but this house, I feel like we're lucky that it appraised and it appraised.
And what-
The house right around the corner listed for the same price, has been on the market for 3 months, and we got lucky that.
And what was the appraised amount? Can you tell me that?
They don't tell me, they just say that it goes to the underwriter to be reviewed and that it's been done and completed and we're moving forward.
Oh, can you tell me this?
Unless it comes in under, in which case the agent can come back to me and say, it didn't appraise for 165, it only appraised for 155, you now have to lower to 155 because the lender's not gonna give them.
Do you happen to
That's
know,
$10,000.
do you happen to know what the taxable market value is, by the way, by chance?
163. There's a estimated real cost on that, so we listed just above. And it made the actual tax estimate may be lower than that. That was the real, the online.
Because, not all the time
Online
you see,
estimated.
well, not all the time you see the taxable market value with the sale price being the same. So in this particular case, you're saying it is.
It probably hasn't recovered from the dip.
The dip's been going. Market's too hot not to say.
Well, I think what we need to do is decide whether or not we're interested in lowering this. And if we are interested in lowering this, by how much?
Do we have the process to put it on hold? And find out what that number looks like?
I would need, yourself, Robert, and Jerry, and Steve to be in communication with the title company on it.
Dave, legally, what can you tell us?
Well, I think that Darcy talked about that there is a process and we've only used it maybe once. Or we could potentially do a reassessment of the fines under 429, I would think. But that's, again, that's a question for council to talk about if they want to do that or not.
And should this decision be made with a quorum or should it be made with a full council here?
You do have a quorum, so you can transact business on that. But if you feel that you want to have your colleagues here as well, that's a position you can take as well.
And when is the closing date supposedly with this property?
3 weeks, December 21st.
So our next meeting will be the 17th.
That would delay the closing for sure. Title would not allow another meeting that close at closing before making and running numbers and doing her job she needs to do in order to close on this house.
Well, I can tell you, ma'am, even considering that is beyond what I would like to do. I mean, I understand empathy and that time of the year and everything like that that goes with this, but I just can't, I mean.
All we can do is ask and it's really what you guys.
Oh, yeah. Done that very well.
I guess I would ask Jerry, would you be inclined to reassessing the fines?
Yeah, I'd be inclined to do it. It does go against my better judgment because I do want to be fair to everybody else. And, in my opinion, I think this homeowner's had ample time to deal with the issue and things have kind of snowballed awfully quick. And I don't think he really realized how much they're snowballing. But just to put the issue behind us, I'd be in favor of reevaluating the fines. By how much, I don't know,
But if you're looking at the numbers, Jerry.
Well, I guess I don't.
Like we said, if the realtors are willing to come down, a certain percentage, the city would get, to me, this is the worst case scenario. You said it's the best scenario. I say it's the worst scenario on the list of abatements that we have. Because this gentleman's losing his home, right?
So likely around the rest of a lot of the other ones will do the same thing.
And if they do, then maybe that assessment needs to be called upon again. I mean, that is, to me, the worst case scenario. That's not what I'm here for. That's what I'm not wanting to do, is to assess people out of their homes. The city doesn't have $13,675 invested in getting this property abated.
Let's ask a question here. I'm trying to go along with this the best I can here, but let's just ask a question here. I've come down these numbers here, and after taking the 163 and taking off commissions, taking off closing costs, taking off, I got it down to 134,325, and I understand, where's that sheet there? I understand that the amount from the sheriff's sale is 134,400, so we're within $75 of that. So tell me, what is the problem with that if you're within $75?
She said there was legal fees.
Was there some legal
There's
fee?
still lawyer's fees that need to be incorporated in the sheriff's sale.
Mayor, Council, in your packet, I think the very last page that I handed you has $2,390 in costs and disbursements regarding the
Well,
sheriff.
I could tell you what I would go along with. What I would go along with is a break even. That's what I would go along with. So if there's something there beyond this money here that I don't understand about, these fees or whatever, I would be open to doing that. But what I cannot justify is 16 other people that will be calling us and bugging the hell out of you. Now, you're gonna be off the council here in a month, but I won't be. And neither will you be.
I won't, but I will take those phone calls.
And I will give them to you, trust me, I will. But I'm just saying to you here, and I'll give you everyone, plus more if I can find it. But anyway, I will say to you this, because if there's a way to break even on it, I would go for that. That I can go for, okay? So that you walk away learning from this and watch yourself in the future with roommates or whatever you think about. But if you learn from a lesson, lesson's worth its weight in gold. And in my opinion, a break even, I could live with that. If that can be done, okay? But I cannot justify all the time and notices and all the time he had before. Again, as you recall, you gave him some great advice, Mariah, I'm not saying you didn't, but you came when the ship was sinking. You should have gotten you when it was still floating. Would have made a big difference, but he didn't. So I can be open-minded to doing a break even. Okay?
So maybe,
Kate, can you give us some numbers on that at all, or some idea of that?
well,
Some sort of process.
Darcy's explanation is a motion needs to be made to change that amount.
You could do, well, I think you would have to do a resolution to approve a partial abatement.
Okay,
I'm
So
assuming
do we
that
know,
they
do we
would
know
take-
numbers?
I'm assuming that they would take a partial abatement. I think we could probably send it to the county. I have never done it. I don't know at this,
Okay.
right now at this
Is
point.
it, Darcy, that your job to file it?
Dave, is there,
I would have to file it for abatement.
And I
Dave,
put the,
is there a way we could make a resolution to direct staff to do a partial abatement? So,
Based on closing costs?
yeah, based on closing
That
costs,
is a break even factor.
where there's a break-even factor, is there a way to do that?
I think there is, as long as we are able to quantify that number.
Can
How do
you
we do that?
help us draft that resolution? To direct Kate to work with the realtor, whatever, so it's a,
Break even.
a break even. Because
Because the one situation that does make this different than the other 16 is a sale. I agree, I grant you that, okay? And again, I'm willing to bend to the break even to make the sale happen. But I can't forego all this, because I'd have to forgive all that. I can't do that. It's a bigger picture, see?
I do agree that there should be some fine, and I don't know, can we do a cash fine after no longer being a resident, or how does that?
it's attached to the property.
That's the problem.
So,
Asking
if the property transfers,
That's
that's why the sellers would pay the fine, because the new buyers, why should they have to pay the fine?
Yeah.
So typically, that's what it
But it
says.
passes on to the sale.
Right.
Okay. So all we gotta do is figure out the number to break even. That's what we gotta do.
Let's ask Dave to help us draft that motion for that resolution.
And Councilmember, would you like that drafted for tonight or for our next meeting?
I'm thinking tonight.
Well, I think with the time frame they're giving us, which is a rush, but if we can do something, but how do you come up with a number to break even is what I'm asking.
Well,
I would ask that Dave be in touch with the title company to get some final numbers in place and so moving forward.
and she's got to work with the broker anyways.
Okay.
Because we don't, We don't know
We can
yet.
stipulate this through a resolution that it has to be a break even, okay? That the abatement's still in place, but the break even's the number.
Okay.
Authorize the city attorney to contact title company to determine that number.
Okay, so how do we,
Motion and a second.
all right, so now Dave, being you the legal person, I'm gonna have you state the resolution.
A motion and a second to adopt a resolution working with, or authorizing the city attorney and finance director, I would say, to work with the brokers to get to a break-even point.
In the sale.
Abating, would you say abating part of the?
Partially abating
The special assessment?
the special assessment.
The numbers above this legal numbers we're talking about, these legal numbers on top of this abatement's already in place. Because you're stating to me that what's driving this over now could be this legal, that's what you said to me, so it does. So those legal numbers, we basically those numbers that make this work out. Those numbers here in play here that have already been given to the county are at the county now. Those numbers are in play. It's these extra numbers, because again, as I calculated, I rounded upwards, so it could be even less than $75 you would owe, but you're saying these extra numbers could push it over to the tilt pace.
It could, and we always say 3% of the closing costs, and that is almost always a little overestimated by the closing company.
Okay,
And
so-
I can't speak what their
All right,
financing.
but this is the only way I can see that the council and the city are fair, firm, and square.
I have a question. Were there special, I don't know, I didn't look, are there special assessments for water bills on this?
There are some past due bills. There are small bills. He did pay one today, actually, $450 water bill, and there might be one more.
Okay, I don't remember if they were on the roll-up, or did part of your water bill get special assessment?
No, water bill's separate than this, than the
So,
administrative fines.
It's not a significant amount that I'm worried too much about it, throwing him over, or trying to think about too much.
It's mostly,
They're smaller numbers.
mostly this legal-ish numbers you were talking about.
Yeah, the sheriff's bill payoff and the tax
Right.
amount.
Because like I say again, in looking at the broader picture, this seems to be a fair way, because the one exception again is the sale. So how to make that break even is the key, without taking away value. You got direction there?
We need a motion in a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to get clarification. Okay, the terminology clarified. We have that now? Okay.
I will make that motion.
And I will second that motion. All in favor, say aye. Or you want to further
Just, I just
discussion?
wanna,
Or you want more discussion?
just one more discussion. I think the city has put forth a good faith effort to, work with the seller at this point, so I think it's come upon the seller and the real estate agent, he said that you reduce your fees, your commission, if you could talk to the
Let's
buyers.
make it work.
To see if they can make it work, that'd be great, because I think the city is really trying to, I've been on the council for 8 years and we've never done this before. So this is a first for me.
Consider a feather in your cap. All right, no, any further discussion on this?
One more thing, Mr. Mayor. A lesson learned, right?
Ask questions. Don't take one door, slam in your face, open up another one, keep pushing to get a door open, okay? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. What do I do now next?
You have one email, Mariah?
I do, yes.
And you have my phone number.
And in the paperwork I handed over is I'll forward you the closing companies. I'll do an introduction email, how about that? Same with you.
By the way, does this need to come back to council as far as checking the dollar amounts, or you'll let us know what they are?
I think the city attorney has recommended,
That could go in and out, we can,
yeah.
All right, as long as it's break even.
I don't think this is what I do.
Okay, moving on. All right.
Meeting
Go
over.
down. Do we have any more open to the public? Oh, we do? Oh, okay, well then, let me just get back to where I was. Please, just give me a second here. Okay. Next.
Logan James Bankler.
Hi, folks.
Just state your name and address, please, for the record.
Logan James Bankler, 4509, 32nd Court, West St. Francis, Minnesota, 55070, sub 8787, anyone cares? Well, with the previous discussion, I think it would be apt to say that first, I'm not criticizing anyone here personally, more just actions taken by the city and Minnesota Department of Transportation. So, before I begin my argument, I would like to get two things out of the way. First, I was raised with the understanding that there's a strong difference between issuing a complaint and offering criticism. The main difference between the two is that complaining is a form of often immature venting, where criticism requires a proposed solution to the problem being addressed. That being said, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to criticize the efforts of the city of St. Francis in collaboration with MnDOT. Second, I do not know the two girls that were struck nearly 2 weeks ago, nor do I know any of the families affected by the incident. I ask that anything I say from this point onward to be seen as words from a concerned citizen, and that I mean no offense. I can personally attest that the way I speak is not particularly sensitive, and I harbor no disrespect for any party involved or otherwise. I think that it would be pretty hard pressed to find any citizen of the city without a first-hand account of a close call situation, and one would find it even more difficult to find someone without at least a second-hand account from someone he or she knows. My own barely missed me story took place when I was the age of the girls who were hit. The only difference was that I was in broad daylight. Around 3 years ago, my mother and I witnessed a teenager nearly struck off of his bike by an SUV traveling the speed limit, and it was midday in the summer. As an aside, I think that the efforts that were shown by the police department and the fire department that day were nothing but commendable. It should be commended. It was professional and done. From what I can tell, it was done right. So, positive. In the nearly 13 years that I've lived here, and in the 10 years since I narrowly avoided becoming a cross along the highway, the only relevant commendable action taken by the city, in my opinion, has been the pedestrian walkway along Patterson. Everything else, again, in my opinion, has been a half measure at best. 2 weeks ago, within an hour of becoming aware of the situation on Highway 47, my father was able to send me a link to a 300-foot web steel pedestrian bridge for sale. Its price is set at 50 cents per pound, and the bridge is already built. It's ready for disassembly and is ready for transport from the site of manufacture, excuse me. To put it simply, one would be purchasing an erector set below the manufacturer cost, and it has the same flexibility in construction as an erector set. In an effort to give the city the benefit of the doubt, I waited until the last possible minute to get into contact with the Minnesota Department of Transportation to get some preliminary questions answered. I wanted to know what the processes were with regards to a municipality constructing a bridge over a trunk highway right away. In 5 minutes, I was put on the line with a gentleman named Nick, who was a civil engineer for bridge construction under the DOT, and he asked me to wait for him to call back once he did some research. 2 hours later, I was on the phone with him, and he was more than happy to tell me that there have been, and currently are, examples of municipalities quickly coordinating with the DOT to erect bridges over state-owned highways like the Patterson 47. This process is relatively simple compared to others, but the bullet points are to submit a proposal, the state reviews it, then will either approve or deny the request as presented. Nick, the engineer, told me, albeit indirectly, that when cities are willing to pay for the cost of the bridge and come to a financial agreement with the state for its upkeep, things tend to move swiftly and smoothly. Currently, I'm waiting for a call from Ms. Melissa Barnes for a more detailed discussion regarding the general process of embarking on such a project. All of this took me a little more than 2 hours to discover on a Monday. If you are interested in the bridge, I invite you to speak with me and my father after others have a chance to address you, and the meeting is adjourned. About a year ago, Mayor Baldwin wrote in a newsletter that, and I quote, "Recently, the city has joined ISD 15 in working with MnDOT in order to get a stoplight installed at the intersection of Patterson Drive and State Highway 47. The city started talks, and now with ISD 15 on board, hopefully this will help persuade MnDOT to go ahead with the change that has been long overdue for the safety of our children. We will keep posted." A text search through each newsletter sent does not include the words stoplight in that order. Since the fall newsletter of last year, Highway 47 has only been referenced as a talking point for economic development, such as a fourth gas station and a half-mile radius. One exception is in the most recent newsletter stating that a study is being conducted to see how many pedestrians traverse the highway. Two things in mind. First, if your city doesn't see that the highway itself is particularly safe to travel on foot, that might affect the data. Second, as we can see, it only takes 2 pedestrians walking across to become a point of concern. In my opinion, a stoplight at that intersection would once again be nothing more than a half measure. I think it's a very bad and effective stopgap, but I must begrudgingly admit that it's probably the only one that might be done, and it's probably better than nothing. MnDOT on their website will go out of their way to admit that traffic lights are hardly any better than stop signs to increase safety for pedestrians at an intersection. And I think the stoplights will only lead to congestion, irritation, and further mistakes on behalf of the driver. Another roundabout makes the most sense in comparison to a stoplight, and it is less costly in the long run than a stoplight, but it does conflict with the highway's right-of-way designation. I don't blame the driver for what happened that night 2 weeks ago, and that might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't blame the girls either. Everyone that I know in the city has a black humor association with that intersection, i.e., how long before someone is in a traffic accident again? How long before someone is nearly hit again? How long before someone is going to be killed again? From what I know, this was an extremely unfortunate accident that everyone knew was going to happen eventually. Because of this, I cannot hold anyone or any governing body in particular accountable. However, the clock is ticking. Soon the extra caution we've been taking as drivers will wear off. Soon we will forget about the incident altogether. Soon we will be faced with this discussion again. If I'm still a member of the city, you can expect me to be there to say I told you so. And the next time, I will hold the council and the state accountable. It's time to stop pointing fingers. It's time to get something done. In the future, before we worry about smaller projects in a town of breakthrough to 8,000, perhaps we should make sure that kids can get there safely and enjoy said projects. I do have some packets of brief information regarding the bridge that I was talking about.
Please. Good job.
If I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
with all of that being said, that being done, what can we do?
Well, first of all, I want to commend you on all that you researched there. But as I stated in that newsletter that you quoted, we've been working on this since we got elected. It's one of the frustrations I have being a state road versus a city road, because had it been a city road, it would have been done already. We're the ones who reached out to Sheila Kaupi, the North Area Branch Manager, and Melissa Barnes, who took the place of Paul Jung. We've had multiple meetings on this. We also get quoted on the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control, their Bible, that pretty much states so many accidents in such a time frame to justify that type of solution, stoplight, whatever. You know, we also applied months ago for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, federally funded. $21.7 million was for all projects, and 30% of it was proactive. So when I saw that was emailed to me, I called Melissa Barnes up and said, would it be worth applying for this grant money? And she said yes. I then reached out to Craig, our engineer, and Kate Dunstrom, our community development director. We applied for that grant. We're waiting for an answer to that, figuring if dollars were the holdup, we could get some money to change that out. We felt an easy solution would be, because the infrastructure is in place with the footings and the electrical is already there, the matter of just changing the lights out, and being Pedersen would be our top priority. We also felt that multiple stop signs along this 47 with other development going in place and reduced speed would help. What we found out was we were told, first long ago we were told about, before we ran, Rob and myself and Joe Neubauer, who's not here, we were told about a tunnel. Then we found out later on that the tunnel was too high of a water table to do the tunnel, so we couldn't do that. We also thought that might open up some other problems of drugs and stuff like that in the tunnel, so that became more of a problem than a solution. Then we talked about a bridge. We wanted a bridge, and that's one of the first things we asked about. But we were told by MnDOT at the time that with the American Disabilities Act, they don't have steps anymore. They have spirals going up and then over and back down. We were told by them that the amount of money being spent on the bridges and for the lack of use that they get, they couldn't justify bridges anymore. So in other words, they spent more, but it never got used after they were built. They pretty much said idle because the kids don't want to take the time to go up, around the spiral, up, over, and then down the spiral, and then over, so they do the shortcuts. So that was what we were told there. It's always been in our mind that one accident is one accident too many, and that it was never a matter of if it was going to happen, it was a matter of when it was going to happen. Of all the meetings, and we did a St. Francis Forward plan, we had the city residents tell us what they thought was their priorities on 47. I have those emails. I sent them to Melissa Barnes and MnDOT. They've seen the study. They've seen the concern by our residents of what to do. But understand something. One of the frustrations I have as a mayor is I'm not a career politician by any stretch of the imagination, nor do I want to be. The fact of it is, government doesn't move fast as it should. As I stated at a rally on Saturday, I'll put this, Chris Lamont, the father of Andy, said something to me 2 days before that rally. He said, time for talking is done, time for action is now. And I agree with that 150%. The problem is, our hands are tied by the state and MnDOT. I don't like the way they sometimes do things, but they have their policies, and we have to go by that. It's not our road, it's their road. As far as paying for this bridge, if this bridge can work or I'm willing to look at anything to solve the problem, anything. Okay, I have 5 grandkids. I'm concerned about them crossing streets just as much as Andy is now with her father, mother, and Kay and everybody. I'm hoping that it will get a full recovery, and from this, something will be done. I don't see how MnDOT can deny doing something now or not doing it. I don't see how they can justify not doing anything. I agree with you 150%. But we've had multiple meetings. We've had input from the residents, and again, I had all that sent to me on the information from the residents. I put that into an email, and I sent to Melissa Barnes. They have all that. They did a study, showed 141 residents and pedestrians crossing that in a day. Then she talked to us about sharing the study because of all the development going around in the last couple of years here about maybe more studies should be done here. I say doing something is better than doing nothing. And I would say priority one would be that intersection right there. There's also something that the ISD was going to have some plans for to the city that would create, in our opinion, was more congestion in that area. So we put a hold on that right now until we can get this worked out. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. We all hear you up here. We know the problem here. I'm going to wait right now. I'm waiting from, as I mentioned, talk to my police chief ahead of the meeting. I'm waiting for the full report to see how exactly the accident happened. I will take that information to Melissa Barnes, to Sheila Kaupi, the North Area Branch Manager, as I stated. I will also take it to Matt Look, the Commissioner. I'll take it to anybody who will listen. But do I agree with you that something's got to be done? There's no more room for excuses anymore. One fatality is one fatality too much. We've been lucky so far. I was not aware, by the way, as council may have been aware until one of the channels one of the TV stations told me that on a newscast that 16 accidents in 11 years is way too many. And that 11,000 cars go down that road a day, that's way too many. So how they've been, I believe what happens is a lot of times they look at the odds and the statistics and play for the long term. But I've always said at any one of these meetings, I don't want to be that mayor that goes up to that couple and says, we could have done better, but we did. I don't want to be that mayor. I believe a preemptive and proactive is the only way to be on 47, and that's what we're going to do here. So that's what we're going to push to get this done here. So I commend you on your report here and your guidance here and your concern about it, and know that this council thinks the same way. But once again, it's not our road. I wish it was our road because it would be done. It's how do we work with them? We're doing the best we can with them, but it doesn't seem like, I'm hoping now, from a tragedy, something positive will happen, and these girls will fully recover. That's my hope. So I'm going to open this up to Ron. What do you have to say?
An early solution, which is cost effective in my eye, that I'm hoping that we can get MnDOT to do, is to change the yellow flashers to red. So you push the button, all the infrastructure is there. You push the button, it turns red. Right now, drivers just drive through. It's flashing yellow. They barely even tap the brakes. They look around, they don't really see anyone. That intersection is so bad that, if we were to put a bridge in, the vision the drivers would be seeing, the amount of, behind the pillar, no, the kid was behind the pillar, I don't think is the safest way to go. But in the interim right now, change the flashing yellow lights to red, so, because every driver knows to stop on red. So that's what I'm pushing for right now, early on. I don't know if MnDOT's gonna go for that, but in the near future, I'm all about slowing the traffic down. If a roundabout is the way to go, let's do it.
Jerry?
Nice to have you here today, Logan. I share your frustration. Prior to being on the council as a council member here, I was mayor for 6 years. I don't know if you remember the old crossing light there. I know our current mayor say we've been working on this since we got elected. Well, I've been working on it for 6 years prior to that. So the wheels of government does move slow. You know, I know our public works director, myself, and MnDOT sat out in Mancetti's parking lot, and we counted cars. There was traffic studies done, and at that time, MnDOT said, "We're not going to do anything." They said accidents happen all the time at stoplights as well. In fact, the day after, you know, these two girls were hit, and on Patterson, right off Patterson, there was an accident on Sims Road by where Fat Boys was. And that's a controlled stoplight intersection. I mean, you can put four-way stop signs, and I know our police chief has responded to calls down on 22 and 7th Avenue. Anytime we put humans, I mean, we make mistakes. We don't see stop signs or stop lights, or we're texting. So no matter what happens there's still a potential for injury. At the time that we did the traffic count at Mancetti's, MnDOT had said that, you know, they're in the business of moving traffic. They're not in the business of stopping traffic, you know, with a stoplight or stop signs, and even a reduced speed limit. They said it doesn't warrant it. They come back saying that if you reduce it to 30, you get hit with a car doing 30 miles an hour, you still end up just as dead as you get hit with a car going 40 or 50. You know, and that's the tragedy of it. I believe the number was below 25 in order for it to be non-lethal, you know. So unless you slow it down to that extreme. At that time, you know, I decided, well, we'll take what we can get. We did work with the school to get an upgrade on that crossing walk. And I think everybody that remembers the old crosswalk, I mean, this crosswalk is way better than the old one, but it's not an end-all to be-all. There is no barrier to protect the kids. And sometimes I think that gives people a false sense of security when they push the button. I mean, they can still get hit. I actually look at it from a different approach. Looking at, you know, people talk about a bridge and whatnot. The solution that I would like to see is let's move the school. I think that would solve a lot of our problems. I know it's expensive, but why have a school right next to the highway anyway? All those kids, if you move the school out of town, you know, the school district was going to bond for $190 million anyway, and part of that was to fix up these old buildings. Let's build a new building.
That's one thing we want to talk about.
Well, you know, then build a new building, have the middle school be the old high school, and then we don't have a school next to the highway, and they're not jetting across. All of a sudden, our 140 crossings turn down to about 20, and it's much more manageable. You know, you don't have to worry about the elementary school kids because they're not the ones that are crossing the streets. It's the middle schoolers. 99% of the traffic is the middle schoolers. You know, I thought about that, and I also thought about a bypass. The city of Cambridge did it. You know, Highway 65 used to go right through downtown Cambridge. They actually moved it around Cambridge, and if you want to go downtown, I mean, you actually got to get off on 95 and take a turn to go downtown. That way, there's actually a barrier between the fast-moving traffic and the kids. They're just not in the same area. I look at it like this, you know, like that. If we build a bridge, it's still up to the kids to use the bridge. And I know there's still gonna be kids that are just gonna ride their bike across the street. And at that point, once we put the bridge there, drivers aren't gonna be looking for kids like they are now. You know, so it may become more dangerous, or a tunnel, or whatever. I don't think there's an easy solution, you know, and there's no quick fix. You know, I think it's gonna take a lot of driver education. It's gonna take a lot of pedestrian education. It's gonna take a lot of school district and the MnDOT and the city and the county all working together, and maybe we can take the best ideas from everybody's plan and try and get a more workable solution. Because I don't think there's one solution that really works. You know, I don't think there's a silver bullet.
I would agree with that, and maybe a combination of a walk bridge and stoplights, I don't know. I mean, I look at those pictures here of the research you did on the bridge, but it has steps. And then, of course, there's the American Disabilities Act that doesn't like steps because of handicap accessibility. So we don't know the answers, well, we really don't. What we do know is it's time to stop talking, like Chris Lamont said, and start doing something. So I'm hoping again that the girls recover fully. I'm hoping that from this accident, the heat stays on, like you said, because after time people forget and go on with their lives. I'm hoping that, I've emailed people, I went on my St. Francis Post page this weekend, and I told people the best thing you can do, reach out to your state representatives, and MnDOT, put the pressure on. Keep the pressure going. That will help us to help you. Because you see, what's happening here is we're just 5 council members talking to MnDOT. Well, you know, they have many council members talking to MnDOT, so whether they hear us, at what level they hear us, I'm not sure. But when they hear you people behind us, that's a different ballgame. The more voices, the better. So, but understand something. I mean, we got this, hopefully get this grant money from the HSIP, which I felt was really unique because once again, just under $7 million, 30% of it, of the $21.7 million was for proactive. In other words, you don't need statistics about how many accidents over so much time frame to justify doing something. I like that proactive and preemptive attitude. I think that's the right way to go. As I stated before, one accident is one accident too many. So we're on the same page you are, but in this particular case, because it's a state road, I don't know what the solution, the final result's going to be between stoplights, walk bridges, whatever, roundabouts. I don't know what it is, but I just know one thing: something's got to be done now than later. Now, so you keep up your work, we'll keep up our work, and together we can make a change here. That's what it's going to take.
May I offer some suggestions?
Please.
Mr. Bauer, with regards to changing the lights from yellow to red, I do strongly agree. I honestly don't know what the rules would be if they flashed red and blue that we could fill in, because that would definitely, for certain, get people's attention. Because I know, stop and slow down, people naturally rubberneck. So,
well, let's ask our police chief. Todd, if it's blinking red lights, I've been told, state law says you have to stop.
Well, at a crosswalk, I believe the way statute reads is once somebody is in that crosswalk. I don't necessarily think it depends on the lighting agency or warnings.
So we know that doesn't work right now. We know that.
There's just too much going on at the intersection for motorists, for pedestrians, depending on the lights to keep.
And I think it's not just a matter of going speed slowly. I think it's also brightening up the area too would be nice. Especially if they come around that curve going north by the Public Works building, police department building. They come around that curve, they start speeding up.
I'm actually less concerned about the speed limit. In fact, I would really mind seeing the speed limit increase, assuming that the proper provisions were taken to maintain safety. So really my entire argument centers around we need to remove excuses from both drivers and pedestrians. We need to make sure that pedestrians have the ability to not even be involved in the road. And then if they are, that's definitely their fault. With regards to steps instead of a swirling ramp, that bridge is entirely modular and doesn't have to be purchased as an entire package. So that could be something to bring draftsmen in and discard that way. With regards to people just skipping the bridge entirely, not going out of license, whatever decision, some simple landscaping measures could be taken to prevent people from actually having access to the highway from the sidewalk for however many feet long. It could be a decorative wall or, like I said, anything that you want. With the crosswalk itself, for immediate measures that are within the budget, so to say, I think it would be effective to change the lights to a different color, not because it's any more right legally speaking. It comes down to one's attention. With yellow lights, people, of course, would associate flashing yellow potentially with yield, like highway on-ramps, things like that. Up until recently, it was my understanding that even though you do have to stop for pedestrians in a crosswalk, that even what I witness is cars will only wait so long that the pedestrian is out of the way, even if there is signage posted. And I'm not sure if that's legal. I'm assuming that it isn't, but it isn't safe regardless. A lot of problems. And up until this point, I have not wanted to point the finger at the city council or at the state directly, because I am not as well versed in the inner workings of all this as you. That's mostly what this is about, is around education. I understand that you guys are under the barrel all the time, and I'm sure the state is under the barrel all the time, but where's the miscommunication going where they don't really see it as an issue? And what can we do to remedy this as economically and as quickly as possible? Now, what Jerry was saying about moving to school, although I don't necessarily disagree, I feel like that might be a double step, potentially in the wrong way. Obviously it's part of an argument building the bridge, but I think that might be a better solution. However, I don't know what the population density is the west side of 47, but from what I can tell, and again, I don't know everything, most of the economic development for things that people would want would be on the east side of 47. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but a pedestrian bridge would also help that other part of St. Francis get to such an economic development, be it industrial park or commercial zoning or whatever.
We did approach ISD 15 to take the high school, build a new high school, and incorporate the middle school and elementary school into the old high school. We did approach them. We showed them that for high school under 2,000 students, you could have 40 acres to do that. We were told by their consultant that they needed 70 acres. When we approached them with the idea, they turned it down. So that just wasn't on the plate. I talked to the Minnesota Department of Education, talked to a gentleman over there who told me point blank and sent me documentation, again, that a high school under 2,000 in attendance, 40 acres is all you need. We have 40 acres on Roanoke, they have 40 acres in Oak Grove. We thought we could make a deal with them on land to get them to move over here, but we were told once again that their consultant said 70 acres and they wanted to go for the $80 million bonding issue, is what they did. So you have to understand something. We may have a little more clout than a single resident, but we still end up at roadblocks. We do. Not something I relish or like and all that. I'm kind of a guy of action, so I like to get things done. I like to fix something once, not twice. This has been going on, I think a long time. They've been playing odds and statistics and getting away with it, but the odds are going to catch up with all of us. So yes, something has to be done. Your ideas are good. I don't care what it is, a walk bridge, roundabouts, whatever. But a solution has to stop. Has to happen. So this accident's there stop completely. And you're never going to be 100% effective anyway, because there's always the human factor, always, weather and everything else. Okay, like the accident on Sunday was more of a yield and weather and stuff like that. It happens. We see how people drive. No one is, one car lane for every 10 miles. We don't see that anymore. We see people riding bumpers. We don't see people using their signals anymore. We don't see people turning their headlights on when it rains and sleets and it's foggy. We don't see any of that. We'd like to see education every 5 years. Like I have to go through code compliance for my trade every year. I'd like to see every 5 years people to go through an education course, not to take their license away, paid for by the insurance companies, to make people aware of what you need to do. One car length again for 10 miles and so on and so forth. But that's not being done. So it's a sad thing when it always comes down to the dollars. Always the dollars, instead of what's doing what's right. I said at that rally on Saturday, that's the frustration I have, is why does money talk and everything else doesn't? A life cannot be paid for by any amount of money. You cannot replace the life once it's gone. Billions or trillions or anything can't replace that life when it's gone. We need to start thinking like that and solve this problem. That's what I'm hoping MnDOT will realize now. I don't see, with their back to the wall, how they cannot do anything. I don't see that. But it's still going to be up to them. So the pressure that you as residents can put on, and the pressure that we will continue putting on, and all the meetings we're going to have and all this, hopefully a solution is going to come a lot quicker than later. I hope. That's my hope. So once again, I want to thank you. We got some great ideas. We will present this bridge idea to MinDOT. I can tell you that, I will hand deliver it myself. See where it goes.
I have no further questions or comments. That's
One of the concerns I have with building a wall on either side, landscaping, like you said, based on that intersection of where that school is, and I agree with what Jerry's saying, that's a corridor for middle-aged, middle schoolers. And unless you close that road off completely and force them over the bridge, they will, no matter how big the wall is, from O'Reilly's to the ice arena, they will just go right where that school is and run right across the street.
No, I can agree with that, but once again, I'm not denying that that would be for certain eventuality, but then I can say that there is someone that was at fault there. It's not like
Right.
we missed an opportunity to take precautions in
Yeah.
that case.
Use
That's
the
all.
bridge and then there's fault to have, yeah, I agree
Well,
with
you
that.
know, on 65, you see what they've done in East Bethel area there with those J turns now, so that you have to go around and come in?
I have to know.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some changes that can be done. You know, we're in 2018, the second millennium, things can be done. It's just a matter of they want to do it, that's the kicker right there, so. I agree with a lot of everything that's said up here. Like I say, I don't think there's, no matter what we do, there's never gonna be 100%, you know, not 100% efficiency where no accidents will ever happen, but sure as heck, we're gonna reduce it. And that's what we have to bring up to MinDOT. Time, like I say, Chris Lamont said it perfectly, time for talking is done, time for action is here. So that's what's gotta be done. Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ron Menkler?
Good evening, I'm Ron Beckler, I reside at 45092 32nd Court Northwest, my address is in City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you, and I'd like to extend my thanks and my pride to my son, who tried to bestow some sensibility on this council. I'm an old fart, so I'm going to get right to it. I wish I brought my shovel and golden shovel BS, Mr. Mayor.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Speak.
MinDOT, you want to fix the problem? Fix the problem. All you need is their blessing and approval for what it is you propose. You don't need their checkbook. That's what this is all about, as you said, money. Who's going to stand the bill? What you have before you in the packet is a bridge, brand new, 300-foot span, was built to government spec for a government project. Government canceled the deal. It's available to be purchased. How much money is going to come to you in this grant, theoretically?
I don't know. Craig, can you tell us the dollar amount? I know.
I think the grant was for around 300,000.
300,000. That will almost 100% pay for that structure.
Oh, yeah, $297,000.
Well, here's a little issue packet, which is the one through it. It's built in two principles. You either buy everything as it's already been constructed and parceled out. The cost is double parceled out, buy everything and get it for 50%. That bridge structure, complete with what it would take to put it up over here to address this problem, the whole process would be less than $2 million. Now, this ISD 15, that will be lied was all in order to obtain their bonding.
I agree. I agree. I agree.
Make them ante up. They got the money illegitimately, they lied to the taxpayer. The city of St. Francis, they wound up with whatever it was, at the end of the day, $1 million or whatever. Have them cap their budget and let them fend the expense of this. The remedy is readily available at less than 25% of what it costs otherwise in home. So the question is whether or not the city is going to actually truthfully address the issue. Now I'm going to go back in time and historically, Jerry and I don't know each other on a buddy basis. We've been associated and appointed over the years, and we've had many discussions on things. It was Jeremy Feller, or you recall, when he was here, and the city was going through the orchestration of building a new building. And they came up with the enterprise that we have down the road, a $3 million palace for the city. I found and presented to the city council a building that was twice that size. That could have been had, reconstructed.
Are you talking about the police public works building?
Yes.
That was an $8 million project.
The whole build process?
$8,020,000.
I was of the understanding it was 30 million.
$8,020,000. The actual, the projected first figure was $9.5 million, went down to $8,020,000. That's a fact.
Nevertheless, they could have had a building twice that size.
With the city hall in it?
No.
We agreed.
4, 5 million.
We agreed.
But the city council, very well presented. The city council, unfortunately, wanted to build an edifice to their egos in total disregard to the financial burden that they're casting upon the citizens of the city. Again, I see those same types of processes in place in dealing with this intersection issue. Nobody wants to get tapped into their budget. You're saying we have to go and we have to force the state. It's their road. Yes, it's a state road. Does the state care if you're going to spend money to correct the issue? Not at all, so long as it meets the criteria and the engineering standards of the state. They welcome it. It's just that much less money that they're having to take out of their budgets and what have you. So it's a matter of who's going to take the ultimate responsibility. We can play games with this issue down here until hell freezes over. I know how hard it was that in Jerry Bush, we were involved with some of that in the pedestrian walkway years ago. And it's the same game again today, Mr. Mayor.
Well, let me just say something here, because you're coming on to me like that. Craig, we've been at those meetings, you've been at those meetings. Is it that easy? Then why didn't MnDOT ever tell us it's a matter of us spending the money versus them? I never once at that meeting, Kate, unless you can correct me if I'm wrong, and anyone here, correct me if I'm wrong, that I ever heard them say it's a matter of money, you pay for it and you can do it. Because if it would have been that, we would have done it. Not once did I hear that at all.
Mr. Mayor, now I'm going to go back to the earlier post that spoke to you. Knock on doors and ask the right questions. My son, on the phone, got those questions answered.
Correct, is that correct?
The state said, you can spend the money, but you have to meet their standards, their engineering standards, and what have you. It has to be agreed upon. They would care less if you want to take up the time. They would celebrate.
Then I'll tell you what, Logan, you give me the name of the person you talked to, and I will call that individual tomorrow, first thing in the morning. And if I get the answer from him, I'll be talking to Melissa Barnes in the afternoon and Sheila Kaobi. I guarantee it. You give me that number of who you called, and I'll find that out for a fact. And then I will talk to those people myself, if I find that to be true.
Yeah,
All right? Before you leave, give me that number, and I'll do that.
Fair enough.
Mr. Mayor, I think it also depends on what project you're talking about also. If it's a signal project, they have certain warrants you have to meet. They don't just let you put a signal on the highway just because you want to. So you're talking about different projects here, a pedestrian ramp, and that's likely true. If you put up the money and do the research and the studies, they may let you do it.
And that's one of the reasons we filed for that grant money, to take money out of the picture. So there was no excuse that where the funds were coming from. That's why we applied for it. And it was Melissa Barnes said, you should always apply for grant money, and I did just that with the help of Craig, our engineer, and again, Kate Thurston, the community development director. So once again, Logan, you give me that number, and I will take it from there, and I will make sure, if it's the truth and what you're saying, I will push it to the right people and get motivated. We have nothing to hide here, or no gain here at all, to say that we don't want something there. There's nothing, we ran from past councils, I can't say what past councils did or didn't do. I know what we ran on, and what we changed here, and we do listen. So if you can tell us a better way, or show us that we were wrong, or could have done a better way, then show us. Because it's all about actions speak louder than words.
It's true.
Okay. And I'm an old fart too, by the way.
Secondly, now that that's set aside, moving ahead, because you're going to be discussing the tax budget as you go with the matter of business. Of course, I'm upset with what I see. Back in my day, probably before yours was here, we learned that 2 plus 2 equaled 4. 2 apples plus 2 apples equaled 4 apples. But I'm just not of the understanding how the math is added up to arrive at what we see on our tax statement and how things are being adjusted. Because since the Great Depression, these young folks really don't know what the Depression is. But we saw our house value drop from $226,000 at that time to, it dropped about $80,000 if I'm not mistaken, right. Now it's come back up a little bit. But what's interesting is our new taxes as put forth in the statement, where it's supposed to be valued now at such a tax increment, the way it's been set for the council and what have you. We're going to be billed, our taxing, I think, is $2,200 some odd dollars. Because our house still is by the tax statement, some $40,000 below where it historically was, when it was billed at $226,000. And our taxes, being $40,000 below value at its high, are over $400 more. So I'm wondering how these numbers have been applied to valuations and indexed and what have you, so that our property taxes for a home, which is $40,000 less than it was historically, are $400 more than what we historically paid in taxes at that value. So I know it's going to be a little bit of a process. Maybe it might not be something we're going to take up at the meeting here. But I'd really like to see how the numbers were put together and constructed to come to the valuations in tax bases that we're now seeing. Because it doesn't make sense to me. I can't begin to justify how something goes down in value by over $40,000, that it is taxed $400 more than what it historically was.
So are you telling me that your property value from the last year is $40,000 less this year in an inflated market?
No, from the last so-called Great Depression.
Right, the Great Recession
years ago.
Right, but that was
How many years ago?
That was back a few years or whatever it was, I don't know.
08, 09?
Yeah.
Okay, but
But
now we're
that's when the
18.
earliest property came.
Do I agree with you that the market today is artificially inflated, that you have increases in pricing of 5 to 7%, but you have wages not even getting a 3% COLA. You have small cracker boxes in St. Louis Park going for $500,000. You have 960 splits when I started building 25 years ago for $117,500. Now you can't even find one. The starting homes are $300,000. I mean, do I think it's ridiculous? Now you're seeing people starting with mortgage rates now at just under 5%, starting to slow the market up a little bit and bring it back to reality, where you had multiple bidders and now you don't. I mean, all I can tell you is when this city kept its tax rate, everything flat. We didn't raise taxes. You know, some of the bonding issue created your increase in your taxes from what the ISD did, and I agree with this council, members of this council, that I didn't like the way the bonding issue went down, and I feel that they don't spend the money as wisely as they should. But but a lot of this stuff, by the way, can be brought up by you, the residents. You know, there's an old saying about united we stand, divided we fall. But your voice is louder than our voice when you come together and really speak at meetings like this or board meetings. But a lot of times we find that dealing with, we extended Olive Branch out to ISD 15 in the very beginning, 2 years ago, and have not been reciprocated since then, and it's difficult. Like earlier Logan mentioned about, me saying in a newsletter about reaching out to ISD 15 about 47 in Pedersen. That's true, we did, because we felt the more on the issue and the subject, the better chance we had to get something done by MinDOT. But it wasn't easy to get them on. They didn't jump on board. We pushed them to get on board, and then they joined us. So I'm just saying to you, government is a work in progress. Is it perfect? By no stretch of the imagination. And as far as some of these things that you see here, you can always get your house reevaluated or reassessed at any time. That is something you can do. As far as the rates you're seeing and all that, I'm just wondering how, I would imagine today with your assessed value it would have to be up, not down, in an inflated market like it is today. I would have to say that. I would be very surprised if it wasn't.
I'm wondering what the formula is for coming to the basis of the assessments on the homes.
Then maybe we could give him the number to Eric and see how that formula works out, or do we know that already?
Based on comparable sales.
Comp sales?
The state changed the way they did their formula. I think it was probably back in 2010 when they eliminated the homestead credit. There used to be a homestead credit, and the state changed to a market value exclusion. And when they did that, the formulas did change. So some people's home values, the formula was not advantageous for them, and they have to pay more, but then other people paid less than what they were paying. But there was a formula change, and I'm thinking 2012 rings a bell.
Yeah, it's
It-
been a few years.
Yeah, it was about
I
that.
can't say exactly the year, but it changed.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly the year, but you are right, the formula did change. So it's not gonna be an apples to apples comparison. Yeah, but you're exactly right with that. The homestead credit is no longer available, and now it's a market value exclusion. And with that market value exclusion, how it works is the greater the value of your home, the less exclusion you get. So your taxes are a greater percentage of the value of your home. And if your home is worth a lot less, then you get a bigger exclusion that's excluded from taxes. So your taxes are a lot lower. So the formula did change.
Did the formula change in such a way that when you see the value drop by 40,000 from where it was?
But it's all comparable, so if everybody's value drops, then it's going to be no difference in the formula.
Okay, so then you're saying everybody's in the same basket.
I think so.
Okay, so we've got a $40,000 diminishing asset. And yet the taxes are over $400 more than when the house was valued at $226,000 or $40,000 more. I'm trying to get a grip on how they came up with or what the actual basis of this math is. When you have a diminished asset, but a higher tax base.
Now, what portion of your tax bill has went up? Has it been the county, the city, or the?
They've all done.
And I don't deny that. If you go over time, everything costs more. So I don't deny that, but I mean, I'm guessing that not all $400 is of the city's portion. My guess is the city's portion is
Very small.
yeah, a lot smaller percentage of that.
I'm just curious, so if we,
Yeah.
somebody could forward a phone number or something.
Can we give him a number to
I
Eric?
have a good understanding of how that really
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, Eric will be able to give you the formula and how that works.
Yeah, I gotta follow up with Ron anyway, so I can get on yours.
Okay, perfect.
I would say that taxes are like gas, right? The cost of a barrel of oil shoots up $3-4. Tomorrow, it's gonna be 30 cents more expensive. But now we see the cost of a barrel of oil is under $50, and our gas prices just kind of creep down really, really slow.
It's
So
called capitalism.
that's, and when your taxes in 2008, when your value went plummeted, the state didn't go ahead and start reevaluating. All that stuff's on a rotation basis. So you don't see that, but at a trickle down. By then, most of your market has recovered. So you didn't see a greater savings. It's just like gas prices. Somebody's out to get paid, so.
I also know on one of the breakdowns that Joe Coleman, our city administrator, brought to us, I think a year ago, something about on a property tax of about $1,558, the amount of money the actual city gets in a year is like $600 out of that, between the independent school district getting it, between the county getting it, and then some of the region getting it. We end up getting like about just under like, I think it was like $60 $56 a month, something like that, comes to the portion of the city. So before we get our hands on it, it goes to those other entities. So the breakdown, by the way, is amazing, because it really comes down to peanuts when you think about it. For ourselves, general government gets a portion of $11.91. Public safety gets $27.52. That's fire and police. Streets and recycling get $8.96. Parks and trails $4.25. Community development $5.96. Transfers of debt $8.82. A total of $67. A monthly bill for the median homeowner in 2019 will be $67.42. This pays for emergency services such as fire and police, street maintenance such as snow plowing and parks, services such as mowing and maintenance. So,
and that's based on 174,200 medium.
Yeah.
House.
If Ron wants to stick around, we are going to have public comment on the budget presentation. You're going to see all the information. Everything's going to be put out there, and then just go back up to the microphone and speak to it.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, anybody else in the public?
Ray Schott.
There.
My question was, Ray Sherrick, 24492 Martin Street, north of the St. Francis, Minnesota, 55070-9400. Anyway, my question was very similar to the previous gentleman. I discussed with some of my neighbors, and they only went up a little over 8% on their taxes total, and mine was like almost 12%. Of course, 12% is the threshold where you can file for, I forget what it's exactly called, to get some money back from the state or whatever. But of course, magically, it's only 11.8, so you don't get that. And so I'm trying to figure out, I would think everybody's taxes should go up evenly. Everyone gets the same, but it's not the same. I mean, some people's houses must be worth equal than others, I guess is what I'm getting at. How do they get 8%, whereas I get 11.8? That's what I wanted to know. And again,
It depends on your value. If your home is valued higher, it's going to be taxed.
Yeah. If
so in other words, the more money you get or the more house you have to pay a higher tax. Until you become a bajillionaire, then it goes the other way, is what you're saying.
If the assessor determines that it's valued higher than your neighbors that are at 8%, then you have to.
It still doesn't make sense to me why I get assessed 11%, even though my house, because 8% of $200,000 is a lot more money than 8% of $100,000. So it's going up exponentially. And it just doesn't make sense to me how that works as fair.
But if you feel your assessment's wrong, you can get it reassessed.
Okay.
You know, that is something Eric told us from the beginning. You just have to call them up and they will come out. So that's
I
something.
mean, I haven't added nothing, and then my property values, like his, plummeted huge. And yes, it's creeped back some. I get that, but.
We can give you the number to call him and have him come out and reassess your house.
Okay. That still doesn't explain how, to me.
Well, it's going to be,
one person.
How big is your house, for instance? How many square feet?
Well, I have like 2,600 square feet finished.
And, okay, 2,600 square feet finished, and your neighbors are basically, how big are they? Just give me an estimate.
As far as I know, they're approximately all about the same.
Okay.
Now,
Do they have 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms? I think it breaks down to stuff like that.
Yeah, I have a 4-bedroom and whatever, but my one neighbor has like 5 bedrooms, and his is one of the ones that's only 8.8% or whatever it is.
And he's a neighbor of yours, you said?
Yes, I'm not gonna throw him under the.
No, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't care about that. I'm just saying to you, the best way to do it would be to call Eric up, have him come assess your house, and ask him questions to see why yours is more than theirs. I don't know it. I can't tell you. I own the houses, I know the area.
Well, I understand if the house is worth more, that's fine, but the percentage of increase in the taxes, I would think is the same. Like your gas scenario, it's like, okay, they raise the gas, now you get a drive there, you only get a 20-cent raise on your gas at the pump, but I have to pay 30 cents of more for gas, even though it's the same gas. That's what I'm not understanding, is why is the percentage more? And you're saying, well, it has to do with the value. Okay, again, I come back to the 8% of 100,000 versus 200,000. Just throwing those figures out there, not I mean any.
Let me ask you this question. Do you know, just the one example of your 5-bedroom neighbor, okay?
Yes.
Do you know what his appraised value was versus your
I
appraised
have
value?
no idea, I didn't ask them that.
All right, well,
I
maybe-
don't want to know. I don't
Well, I'm
care.
just saying, maybe you could ask that, because then if you knew that dollar amount, you might know why the taxes are one way or the other. If he was lower than your appraised value, then he would be higher, vice versa. I'm just saying, stating a fact here.
Well, and when they're doing an appraisal, I know that sometimes that they're forced to make certain assumptions. For example, if the appraiser, you don't see the appraiser coming, you lock the door and you shut the shades, because that's what everybody does.
Yeah, well, he
I
did
mean-
that once, and we had him come in and look at and
You know, and
whatever, but
so I do know that they make certain assumptions, like if your home is just built and, you know, they'll assume that your basement isn't finished. But they're not gonna assume that forever.
Every 5 years.
Right.
Assessment.
5 years after that, they're gonna assume, well, they probably, I knock on the door and I know he's in there watching TV and he's not letting me in. I'm gonna assume that it's finished by now, and then he'll change different assumptions on the computer. And I don't know if that's the case, but then the value of your home would shoot up, you know, because you didn't approve it, you know.
pretty
You know.
sure we'll be on that.
You know, so I don't know the particulars of it. Now, Eric is our city appraiser. We contract through him. He has a firm that he goes out and he appraises everybody. Well, I don't want to say he appraises everybody. What he does is they break the city down into different sections. They appraise each section a year. So every 5 years, everybody gets hit.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe it's been a while and your home value's really shot up since the last time you've been appraised. I don't know. But Eric will be able to give you the ins and outs of why it is compared to what you paid last year and what changes for this year. And it, you know, I don't know.
So you're saying that if my value is less than my neighbor's and my percentage is higher?
No, he's not.
Well, not necessarily. I don't know if there's,
Earlier.
well, to give you an example, and maybe it doesn't count in your case, but, you know, we had a case here earlier where we were going to assess some fines to a property.
I understand.
Well, that goes under the property taxes. So that's gonna make their property taxes shoot way
And
up.
that's not value though.
Well,
The special assessments are on the taxes.
isn't that on your tax
Not
line?
in the proposal. But
Then I don't know, because I do know it goes on your taxes, and it's just under a line.
But I'll give you an example here on my house, by the way. When I bought it, the basement was finished, but before that it wasn't. So the last appraised value, it did not have a finished basement. Now I'm gonna be taxed for that finished basement, this next property value. And there's different levels of finishing, basic and more intense finishing. So it just depends on how it's appraised. So I'm expecting my taxes to go up because I have a finished basement that I didn't before. So every 5 years they get appraised, and like Jerry said, they assume in new construction that you don't have the basement, and they'll come back in 5 years and you may not have it still, or you may have it, increase the value of your property. So it really comes down to valuation of your property. So what my suggestion would be, call Eric up, we'll give you the number, and reassess your house with you there. Walk them through.
Darcy's got a comment too.
And what you're saying is completely correct. It all is based on the value, and that market value exclusion plays in there, because as your value goes up, you lose exclusion, so there's kind of almost a little bit of a double whammy there, more of your house is taxed. I have 2 tax statements that were turned into me. One is higher value in their taxes, it shows them at going up 2.5%, and the other one is lower value, but they had more of an increase, and theirs went up 8.5%, because they lost more of that exclusion, because their value went up. So up in the top, and I'll go through this box up here shows you your value.
Okay.
And so that generates how much, that generates your tax capacity. Your tax capacity is taken times the tax rate, come down to the city portion of the taxes. And they do it for the county, and they do it for the school district also. There's some things that are taxed not on tax capacity, but like on market value. Those are market value referendums. Sometimes some of the things the school does will generate that, so that's taxed a little bit differently. But the big thing is to look and see what your market value did in the 2 years, right up in this little box.
Yeah, it went up a little bit, yeah.
So, and then you lost more of your market value exclusion.
Yeah, that went down, I understand.
And I'll speak to that when I get into the presentation tonight.
The sad thing is, by the way, is that you don't realize the increase in value because you're not selling your house. The only reason you're seeing the dark side of it, the downside, because you see it when we're taxed. You know, it's like your value went up and you're paying more tax. Now, if your value went up and you could sell it for that, then you walk away with some money in your pocket. I don't agree with how it works, but that is based on your value. So, let us do our presentation. We'll give you the number.
Can I say something, Mr. Mayor? And I'm actually glad to hear that, because last year we had people come in and say, hey, I have 6 acres and my value went up 30,000, and I have 2 acres and mine went up 30,000. You know what I'm saying? So there was a little bit of, so we went with a different company, Eric, and to hear people went up 8%, 2%, mine only went up 3%. So to see that and hear that actually means that I think Eric's doing a wonderful job of really looking at properties individually. But that's what we do, you know, for taxes, is evaluate people's property, and I think that's a good thing, that people aren't all just the same.
Unless you're in his shoes.
Unless you went up 12%.
Yeah, some people are more equal than others, right? Yes.
Well, like I said, let's give the presentation here and let's give you a number and then take a look at it again. Please.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Because this is a new assessor, so that may make a difference too. Thank you, brother. Anybody else from the open public? Okay. Thank you. Thank you to everybody that spoke. Now moving on to presentation, 2019 proposed budget, public input. I think we've had some of that already, so I mean, open.
My presentation.
Okay, certifying taxes payable in 2018, resolution 2018-43. Adopting a budget for 2018, resolution 2018-44. So we'll let Joe, or who's going to do the presentation? Darcy will? Okay.
Hey, good evening, Mayor, Council members, residents, and staff. Tonight, we will be discussing the 2019 budget and tax levy associated with that budget. After I give my presentation, the mayor will need to open up and allow for public hearing. And then when that is completed, you can approve the levy and budgets for 2019. The budget process starts way back in April. This is almost a year-long thing. Salaries are estimated. We go through and we look at where everybody is in the steps, how many hours, try and estimate insurances and everything else. In May, the department heads receive worksheets to complete for their individual budgets. Then June, approximately, we start doing revenue estimates and trying to see where we think we're going to end up on things. We put in the debt service amounts that we already know. Capital budgets are looked at. We have a capital improvement plan that we do in August that generates some of our information. And the departments get back the their requests. In July and August, we start combining all of this data into the budget. We try and figure out what levy is needed to support everything that we are doing. In September, you set a preliminary levy at that point, once we set that preliminary levy, the levy cannot go up. When in December, it can only go down from that point. That's a guideline from the state. So, moving on, our budget goals have always been to try and maintain a high quality and cost effective public services for the residents, address priorities set by the council, if they bring anything up, and trying to maintain a strong fiscal position. Starting to look at the 2019 budget, or levy, you can see this is comparing the 2018 levy to the 2019 levy proposed. It's broken down between general revenue. There's two major categories, general revenue and debt service. Those are broken down even farther within the city, but I certify to the county a general revenue and a debt service, the individual debt service. The general fund portion for 2019 is $3,015,000. We have capital equipment, which we discussed when we did our capital improvement plan back in August. This is going to fund all of our capital equipment purchases for the general revenue. We have $60,000 that we started last year, 2018. We started doing that in 2018 to try and fund what improvements or what solutions we need to do for our buildings for the city. We also have this year the street improvement fund. It has gone from $60,000 to $120,000 levy, and that was discussed also in the capital improvement plan.
But that was also to do with assessments.
Yes. Yes.
No assessments on overlays.
So that, and for several more years, we have committed to putting an additional $60,000 each year, raising that levy to fund those street improvements. Those street improvements also were funded by a $1.4 million transfer from the general fund that we did in 2000.
Based on what the state said, we had over what the state recommended.
Yes.
Just to let the public know. So we had that, and we corrected that, put it in this fund, and then we have a steady stream of revenue by the 2% from the levy that will be in it at $60,000. So that on overlays means no more assessments on overlays. Roads will always be a continuous problem. When you'll have an overlay one time, and down the road you'll have seal coating, and back to overlays. The seal coating, we joined a consortium with Coon Rapids and the other cities to reduce the price with that. In other words, 10 cities dealing with one contractor versus one city dealing with a contractor. And then this road improvement plan brought forth by our public works director and our city administrator, and then put into effect by the city council to do away with assessments on overlays, just to let the public know. Thank you.
So moving down, you look and you see the geo improvement bond 2013, that was a street project. We have $20,900 going to that. The 2015, that was also a street project. The 2013, when it wasn't a street project in 2013, that was a refunding in 2013. It was a prior street project. 2015 was actually done in 2015. That's $20,470. And then the 2017 GEO bond, that was what refunded the lease revenue bonds for the police public works building. And so when we did that, when it was lease revenue bonds, we couldn't have a debt service. There wasn't a debt service associated with that. We could not levy directly for that. We used to have to put it in the general fund and then transfer it over into that. But then when it became a GO, there's a debt service amount. So you can see the total levy is $3,793,590 for 2019, including all of those things. This, I have to say, is an increase over the 2018 levy of $304,799. But because of added increases in our market value, our tax rate is actually dropping slightly. And because that is a generation that is generated from the market value brought down into tax capacity, and then the levy is divided by that to come up with the tax rate. So, moving on, you can see I have the total levy history there. Back in 2010, our levy was $2,873,160. Today, it's $3,793,590. That is an increase over those 10 years of $920,430. This is an increase of 32% over those 10 years, which breaks down to 3.2% an average. Now, many of those years you can see stayed the same. We were under levy limits, or we held ourselves to a $0 increase in our levy. So you can go back and forth. Our costs increase each year. We have increases in the costs. Also, as I spoke before, our new construction that was added, our market value that was added for new construction in 2018, which is going to affect 2019, was over $14 million. That's the number that I got from the county. So, the big thing that was talked about tonight was the proposed tax notices that came out. This, I want to say they were about 2 weeks ago, maybe less. The first thing that I would look at when I'm looking at, when somebody asks me a question, is that little box that I talked to you about, the estimated market value. As you can see on this one, the value went from $310,100 in 2018 to $325,000 in 2019. That is all done by the assessors. Those values are generated through whatever process they go through. Then you can see the next line item is, as Jerry talked about, the market value, or the homestead exclusion. And that program came into effect a few years ago. It replaced the market value credit. But this works a little bit differently in that the exclusion starts out at $30,400 on a home that's $76,000 or less. $30,400 is excluded from the taxes. Each amount, any amount that's over $76,000 is taken times 9%, and that amount is taken off of the exclusion. And so a home that's valued at $413,780 has no exclusion left. So when the value goes up, you also lose exclusion, and so more of your property becomes taxable.
And this was done by the state?
This was done by the state. The state used to, the market value credit was a program where the state gave us the money. They would not levy, they would tell the county, don't levy that amount, we're going to pay it. Well, many years, I don't know how many, I shouldn't say many, a couple years, the state never followed through and never gave us that money. So the city actually lost out in some of those years that we had gone through and we had said, this is our levy, and the state said, we're not going to pay the market value credit this year. We don't have the money. This process is a little bit different, and it shifts some taxes around on there, but the state is not any part of that. The next part that you look at is down at the bottom. There's all these different lines. There's the county line, there's the school district line, there's the city line. That's what the city is going to get on this property. So for 2018, it got $1,624 and 24 cents, and it's proposed at $1,680.65. That shows it going up. What generated that increase was his increase in the market value, not the increase in the tax rate, as I talked about. That is actually going down. And another slide down here, you'll see that if your value stays.
And your value went up, so the inclusion was decreased.
Exclusion went down, so even more of your property was taxable. Okay? So that's one of the things, and as the gentleman said, this one actually, looking down there, it switched, he was at 2.5% increase in his taxes. So what affects property taxes? As we talked about, the market value changes, any of the levies that are set by the different districts, the county, the city, the school districts, and there's some special districts out there. And then the other big thing is fiscal disparities, which is something that the 7-county metro area gets to deal with. And what that is since 1971, any increases in commercial and industrial, 40% of their value goes in to what's called fiscal disparities or an area-wide levy. That means we share, and then it comes back out, it's all distributed back up to these communities in the 7-county metro area based on population and market value. So we actually get some of our tax revenue from things such as the Mall of America or any of those other big things out there. If we have industrial growth here, we would have to put in 40% of that industrial growth into that. So
it goes into a big kitty and it's divided back
and it's
out.
divided back out to those communities. Okay? So this is the sheet that I was talking about, the tax effect on a residential home. If you go across and your home value stayed exactly the same in any of those years, you would see that by rates, your city taxes should have dropped a little bit. Now, most properties probably did actually see an increase in the market value, so they would go between the lines. But a median home value house in 2018 that affects 2019 is $174,200. That home in 2019 would pay, the city taxes are only $809.02.
Now, when you say city taxes, that's a portion of the property tax.
Yes. So, on this last example that we have, is this person's overall 2019 taxes was $4,018.35. Of that, only as we talked about, $1,680.65 was the city portion.
Right, just so everybody knows, that all the numbers of the difference that are in parentheses are negative, not a, that's not addition, that's a down, it's a lower number.
But like I say, you probably went from 100,000 to maybe 110,000. So that would generate more increase, okay? So we're gonna get over to actually the general fund, and I'll start out online. I did put out the proposed budget book. It's on the website. It's not anything, I have a lot more work to do before the final budget book comes out. But all of the funds are there. You can see all the different funds and the breakdown of the general fund in there. So the general fund revenues, you can see, are budgeted at $4,315,920. Of that, there's taxes of $2.9 million, a little over. Licenses and permits, that's building permits and stuff like that, $195,000. Fines and forfeits, that's the amount that the state passes on to us. Intergovernmental, that includes LGA, and like we get money.
Local government aid.
Yep, sorry. We get money for police aid. Charges for services is admin fee that we charge the enterprise funds, and then also the school contract for the police liaison, sorry. And then miscellaneous can include several things, including interest and stuff. And the transfer is $60,000 from the liquor store. And that's been there for many years. The second biggest revenue source that the general fund has is LGA. And this sheet shows you how that has fluctuated. Right now, in 2019, we are scheduled to get $409,500.
And I believe that's an increase of 5.7%. I think they were talking revenues were increased in the state. I'm not sure about that, but I thought I read something to that effect.
Yeah, there's a formula that this all goes through, so I'm not quite sure.
I know revenues of the state were up.
Yeah,
Way more.
you can see it's, less than $3,000 actually that we're getting. But the big thing to note here was if you look at the years, 2010 to 2013, we only got $80,929. That's another thing that the state cut out for us for those years. So that was a big fluctuation, and then they jumped back in 2014 and gave us $313,000. So we have to kind of watch it is when might that go away again. I hope not. I hope the state's doing well.
Well, that's why you plan farther out and you spend your dollars wisely.
So then we're going to move over to the expenditures. You can see those are budgeted at $4,315,920, the same as the revenues. It's broken down into the different categories: general government, public safety, public works. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory. I'll talk about them a little bit later in a couple more slides. But coming down to it, the budget is balanced, and this budget actually, because we did the $1.4 million transfer out, is now down to a fund balance of 58.4%. We were at about 95%.
And what does the state recommend?
State recommends 35 to 50%. So we have a healthy fund balance again. And this is based on estimates.
So we've taken that extra money that the state said we didn't need, to keep in that general fund, and now we're putting it to work through the road program.
Yes. Okay. So that median home value house, as the mayor pointed out earlier, would in fact pay on a monthly basis, if they're writing that check out to the city of St. Francis, $67.42. And it's broken down by the different categories. And to talk about those categories, like for general government, that would be $11.91 a month. That includes running, it's the council, finance, administration, all of those things. We manage a $10 million plus budget. Manage and enforce city codes, coordinate the functions of the city council and all commissions, election functions, public safety. That's all of our police and fire. One thing I do want to point out in these figures, we had the discussion at a work session, and the council did move forward on the budget does account for one new an additional officer. So that is budgeted in these figures. $8.96 for streets and recycling. That includes all your snow removal and ice control, street patching, street lighting, all of that stuff. Parks and Trail, $425. Anything dealing with our parks, our equipment, our maintenance of that stuff. $596 for our community development, building inspections, our economic development in the city, rental license, vacant. And then included in this budget book, it's all the different funds of the city, but the other major funds are our enterprise funds, which include the water, wastewater, stormwater, and liquor. I do want to point out that water and wastewater utility rates are not changing. They're going to be staying the same as what we had lowered them to in August. Those are staying where they are. Stormwater will still be charging $60 per parcel right now.
Based on the MS4.
Yep. And then the liquor
We haven't increased that in 3 years. We've not touched that.
And the liquor fund is just steady as always.
And can you explain on these enterprise funds, you explained this to me because I wasn't aware of this. You bring it down to water fund, wastewater fund, stormwater fund, liquor fund, but it's more of an accounting purpose.
Yes.
Or the way of.
In governmental accounting, there's different types of funds, and enterprise funds are recognized more like a business would recognize things. They recognize depreciation. they recognize, their interest and debt service payments. All of it is within there. It's like its own separate little business. That's what the enterprise funds do. Okay? So, with that, if council has any questions, I certainly can answer them. Otherwise, I would need the mayor to open it up for public comment.
Do I have any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, then it's 8:34, we'll open a public hearing up. Anyone who wishes to speak, speak.
So, that's it, again?
Yeah.
Toby James Bankler at 4509, 237 West, Minnesota 55670. While I was sitting, I was doing some general math, and what I think most of the confusion about the taxes and the rates comes from a decreased value still leading to an increased taxation. So I wanted to run through the numbers. In 2006, my parents purchased their home for roughly $226,000. At that time, they were paying $1,800 a year in their property taxes and whatnot. That is 0.8% of their overall value. Now, if we take the United States financial inflation rate into account, today they would be paying $2,315.87, which is slightly more than what they're actually facing right this second. However, with that in mind, they were still taxed at the 0.8% of the overall value, including the added inflation aspect. They should really only be paying $1,960.95. So for any statisticians in here, they'd be pretty happy to know that either one of two things is going on, at least in our case, going from 0.8 to 1.2% is what that jump in overall taxation was, which is a 50% increase, or if you want to look at it in a nicer way, it is a 25% increase with a 17.7% decrease in overall value. So people are still paying more than the inflationary rate, even if their property goes down in value. The suggestion is it might be worthwhile to address that just for an explanation. It doesn't really matter whose fault it is, but if it can be more clearly laid out that these are what the numbers are, it might clear up some ambiguity.
I also wish I had the property tax rebate back and they were doing this other adjustment type of thing, because it doesn't make sense to me that, you know, there's a certain amount and then your property value goes up, but you get less credit towards it. I don't understand who came up with that idea, but the homestead credit, I don't know if I like that myself, but I actually like the homestead part of it. I like that much better. But the state came up with that idea.
Yes, the state changed that on us. When it was market value credit, that amount was taken out of the levy, and so it didn't affect our tax rate at all.
So it starts out a certain amount of credit, and so if you're $70,000, you said you get the full amount of credit. And if you work your way up to $413,000 right around there, you get no credit.
Yes, that's the way that they do it now. But the way they used to do it is, and back in 2006, they used to just take an amount off the levy, and it wouldn't even be calculated into the levy. It was supposed to come from the state, not the property owners. So this did push that amount. They took it off of the state and put it back on our property owners.
Is there any way to tell us how much the actual bonding effect of the ISD 15 actually affected our property taxes as a percentage? Is there any way to do that? I know these.
I don't have that. That would have to come to the.
Because I know they have said minimal, but I'm getting from other residents not they're seeing a difference because of that too. So, some good questions. Thank you very much.
And I don't know their levies on here, the school levies. There are some other local levies and voter approved levies on there. It shows them on there. What those are, I don't know.
Well, I will say here, my comment between the levy and the proposed 19, you only increased it by $304,799, but we're spending the money better. We have a road program in effect now, so that where some houses use, and Rob is one example of it, we've got a $7,000, I believe, assessment on Cary Street. Those aren't in play anymore. So the city is sectioned off so that on Guarani Street, I can never pronounce that right, Guarani, that had it was the first recipient of our road fund this year, and had a full overlay, asphalt taken down, and new lip put on, and they're not paying for that, the city's paying for that through this road program. So that's what that means. Roads are always, again, as I stated before, a continuous problem. So over a 10-year span, you're gonna have multiple seal coating times. I think, Paul, tell me, on an overlay, would that be every 10 years you're thinking, or how many years does an overlay have?
For
Average.
overlays,
Overlays.
probably closer to 15 to
Okay,
20.
so 15. In the interim, how often do we use seal coating that time frame, 15 years?
Probably 5 to 7 years.
Okay, so 5 to 7. And once again, because we joined a consortium with Coon Rapids and 8 other cities, now we are dealing with 10 cities with one contractor to get a price break. So in the interim between overlays, every 15 years, they'll seal coating the interim to save costs. So the idea of this council was to take the money and spend it wisely for long-term gain and dividend. That's what we're doing. So I don't see where $304,000 is a huge increase, but the money is being spent wisely in my opinion. So I don't see it.
And the one debt service levy for 2015, I know that that's the one that Rob Street was done. That debt service is being paid partially by tax levy and partially by fees.
Right.
It wasn't always.
And also that refi of the police public works building did give us, we went refinancing it from a lower interest rate, from a higher interest rate to a lower interest rate, it actually saved us, about $80,000 a year, I believe.
Yeah, it saved us quite a bit. It's, over time is when we're gonna see it, is that we're saving some interest over time. But, yeah,
I think it was like a 20-year term frame.
yeah, something like that.
Okay. All right, anyone else in the public wish to address council on this matter? At all? Any questions, anybody? No? Okay, in that case, I will close it at 8:41.
And before you is just the resolutions for setting the levy and,
Okay, that's what we need right now. All right, so would that be certifying taxes payable in 2018, resolution 2018-43, is that correct? Do I have a motion to, do I want both or separately, Dave? Separately, do I do it?
Do so.
Do I have a motion, once again, to approve or adopt certifying taxes payable in 2018, resolution 2018-43? Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Dave makes that motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Bauer makes that second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And moving on to adopting a budget for 2018, resolution 2018-44. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Bauer makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. DeBate makes a second. Any further discussion?
I just have one comment.
Okay.
I just want to put it on record, it's always been a goal of mine since I was elected to decrease the budget by 5%. The first 2 years, we've held the levy tax rate even, but I still have a goal of reducing the budget by 5%.
And I would just like to add to that, as our development grows and our tax base grows, we will definitely look at everything on an annual basis and see where we are.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Now moving on to new business. As I stated earlier before the meeting started, ordinance 244 second series amending fee schedule second reading will have to be delayed to the December 17th meeting. Do we have A and B? Oh, A and B?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, okay. Let me just get over here. Okay, that's about the fee schedule. So, both that summary publication to that, both will have to be delayed till December 5th.
Motion would be just to continue the items to the next meeting.
Okay, so do I have a motion to continue ordinance 244 second series amending fee schedule second reading, and B, summary publication of ordinance 244 second series Resolution 2018-45 to be delayed until the December 17th meeting.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ray makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that
Mr.
motion.
Bauer makes that second. Any further discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Now, moving on to Community Development Specialist position. Kate?
Honorable Mayor.
Oh, Joe, okay. Either one.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, in front of you tonight is a proposal to effectively eliminate the Assistant Community Development Director and create a newly formed position called Community Development Specialist. This is going to be a downgraded version of the Assistant Community Development Director. In meeting with the department head and just internal staff, we do have a staff member that has quite a bit of experience in program administration of all these. The amount of time and energy that goes into the rental housing, the vacant building, code enforcement, the day-to-day planning reviews, and some of the building permit processing is quite substantial. In discussion, we determined that going through a 90-day process to potentially get another assistant community development director that may or may not pan out in the long term, and if it doesn't pan out, we're going to now be 18 to 24 months behind from where we were 7 months ago when we created that position. So staff is recommending moving the office assistant into this position and then back in the office assistant position. We have someone on our staff that knows the material, has a can-do attitude, and a willingness to work hard. So we think that this could fill some of the gaps pretty seamlessly if council would move forward to create this position and move that staff member into it.
Well, the one question I have is, I just want clarification there. She's moving from the position and moving not as high as the assistant community development director, another position in between. She will get a pay increase.
Correct. Correct.
But not as high as
from where she's at, but not as high as the assistant community development director was.
That makes sense to me. So, you're aware of who it is?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions about this one?
No, Mr. Mayor, to me, I think it just makes sense. I was never really in favor of having an assistant community development director anyways. Things that our community development department was so new, to me, it kind of seemed like we were growing it pretty fast. And I think by eliminating that position, and adding this position in here, I think it kind of ratchets that back just a little bit. The person that would fill the spot, every time I've gone into City Hall, they've been phenomenal. It's just, I'm always greeted at the door with a smile, so I have no doubt that they'll be able to step in and do this. To me, it does make sense. If you have a candidate that you're confident can do the job, why not promote from within and backfill her spot? Then maybe roll the dice and get somebody that just might be here for a couple months, and turns out it's not going to work out. And so I'm in favor. To me, it seems like it's a very solid move.
I'm in favor of this as well. However, I'm okay with creating a position, but how the move is done. Do we create the position and then have staff promote this person? Or is that something that has to be done by city council?
Yeah, the motion we'd be looking for tonight would be to approve the creation of the position and then moving the office assistant into that role, effectively in one motion.
And just to let you know, that the thought from staff was easier to fill the position she's leaving than the one that she's in, because of harder in the marketplace today with labor, qualified experience help, and they're more in need, so it's harder to fill one position than the other. So moving her up, and knowing what I know of her, by the way, and I agree, she's quite qualified to do it, right? And she's in-house, which I like, by the way, but she works well with our residents, works well with staff, and has the drive to do it, so I don't see a problem.
I personally don't see a problem with it. I just want to make sure that the city stays within its legal bounds of promoting someone or creating a position and then not following through with a hiring process. Could we post a internal position hiring and then just promoting that person into that position there. I just want to make sure that someone on the outside doesn't say, hey, you created this position, and then turn around and filled it without a legal process of hiring.
So there's a provision in our personnel policy that says you can promote someone or reclassify their job essentially if they've been handling the work for 6 months or longer. I think it's fair to say that she's been handling that work for much longer than 6 months. There was never really a full transition of all of it over to the assistant. Stays here for such a short.
She just took it on and did it.
Yep, and so she's been handling it for quite some time, so we are able to do that through the personnel policy.
So actually, right now, she's being rewarded for what she's done all along.
I don't disagree, but I just wanted to get that on record to make sure that we follow through with,
Good point. Anything else?
that's it.
Okay, so now we need a motion to, for this community development specialist position.
And moving the office assistant into that position.
Okay, so
Two or just one?
one for CND.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make
I
that.
haven't read it
motion.
yet. But I'll read it right now.
Oh, I thought he had said the motion.
No, I just said assembly, and I just, was that clarification was good too together.
Oh, okay, I thought that, do you want to make the motion?
No. Can I read it first? CND combined, or a motion to make a position, community development specialist position, and then the authorization advertising for the office assistant that she will be moving from. Do I have a motion for that?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Mr. Day makes that motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Marr makes that second. Any further discussion? No. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, thank you. All right, now, moving on to extrication equipment, fire department.
Mayor and council, before you tonight is consideration to approve the purchase of a new set of extrication equipment for the fire department. This purchase stands to replace our existing hydraulic system that's on our first out engine, engine 2 right now. In doing some research, we first started this process late in 2017. We called out a couple vendors to test some new technology and some new equipment that's available on the market. And this was directed by staff that made it very clear that this is one of our pieces of equipment that has needed to be replaced for quite some time. We invited vendors out. We had staff put their hands on some different types of equipment, both conventional or hydraulic and battery operated tools. The proposal before you tonight is for a battery operated set, which does now meet the standards as hydraulic tools would. The added benefit for us is we're not tethered to a power pack or a hydraulic set. If we do end up with the vehicle far off the roadway, we do have more portability with the battery operated set. In doing some backtracking of our current system, we contacted the manufacturer of our current system, gave them the serial numbers off of our equipment. They backtracked it to 1992 when they did a change in their serial numbers. Now, they did not have our particular unit serial numbers on file, so the best they could tell us is that it predated 1992. The second concern that we have with our current system, we did actually have a hose failure on our hydraulic system this year. They were willing to ship us a new hydraulic hose to do a replacement, but they wouldn't have a technician do it, and they would not honor the warranty of the hose because of the age of the equipment. So we are running into problems in being able to support this equipment moving forward. Secondly, and probably most importantly, since 1992, the automobile industry has undergone significant changes in vehicle safety and technology, especially with composite metals, crumple zone safety, that renders our current set of tools really inferior to today's expectations and requirements. We have identified the gambling fund as a source, funding source for this purchase, which has traditionally been used to help support public safety, more importantly, the fire department in purchasing large equipment. I do also want to make note that moving forward, we have identified funding these purchases specific to auto extrication equipment in the capital plan moving forward. But to offset some of those costs moving forward, it is the next purchase would be in 5 years from now. So this will replace the current need now and kind of jumpstart the direction that we have established with our capital plan. You do have 2 quotes in front of you. The cheaper quote is for a demo set. My hesitation with purchasing a demo set is these tools do travel around the state and the region, are used on a pretty regular basis, and they do get beat up. They still would be honored under warranty, However, the maintenance that would come with purchasing a demo set would certainly be higher than just purchasing a new set of tools outright. So, with that being said, it is the recommendation of the fire department that we do purchase the new set for a total of $20,016, with funds being used out of the gambling fund for the purchase.
Right,
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that 1992 is 26 years later.
Correct.
But the difference between the two, the demo to the full, is less than $2,500. So, I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. One question I have though, what do we do with the old equipment? Can we still use it or do anything with it or no?
So due to the age and the fact that nobody will support these tools anymore, once we have the new purchase, if it's approved tonight, we will declare surplus property and schedule the old equipment to be destroyed or disposed of properly.
Okay, I mean, there's no way, you can't use it at all anymore, period.
You can't, we're using it now, right, because it's what we have. But to give that equipment or donate that equipment to somebody and then set them up for a system that's not going to meet the standards that they need to perform today, and they can't support it, we're setting somebody else up.
No, what I was asking was, you know, because they are batteries, and batteries do wear down and stuff like that, I was wondering if you can't keep it as a backup, use it until it dies, and then discard it that way, or is it not worth it?
I don't know that there would be much value, and we do have a second set on a rescue vehicle right now. That is an aging set as well, and we will look forward to replacing that in 5 years when the capital plan kind of catches up to that. But as far as the set that we're replacing now, and Councilmember Bauer can probably tell you too, it's long overdue.
And it's not a battery set, it's a
It's a
Yeah, I know that, the other one's battery set, so I was wondering, one for backup, but, okay.
Well, we'll have two.
What's that?
There'll be two, there'll be a
Correct.
hydraulic set.
We'll still have a conventional set, and we'll now.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Which is a little newer.
Yep.
Than the one we're giving up.
The one that we have on rescue is newer than what we have on the engine, but it still is an aging
Okay.
piece of equipment.
Right, so we have 3, right now we get a new one, and then we have 2 of the older ones.
Correct.
One is the one you're gonna get rid of because we still have backup on one. All right, that's what I understand. Okay, good. Any other, you want to comment on that? Sure.
Is it possible the set that we plan on declaring surplus, is it possible to cannibalize that, to take the parts off it, or are the parts going to be interchangeable or the same?
The parts will not be interchangeable.
Okay, and that was a question, I mean,
Yep.
if we're not going to be able to get replacement parts, and if we're going to get
It
rid of
was a
them.
struggle just to replace the hydraulic hoses on the tools this year. It was quite an uncomfortable after conversation with AMCA said, yeah, we'll send it to you, we won't send it back to replace it, so you're on your own, and we will void the warranty of the hose because of the age of the equipment, so.
Okay. Well, and I commend you for getting on the capital equipment plan, that's a good thing.
We took some big strides this year to adjust our capital equipment plan so we can get ahead of some of these things.
And planning farther out and preparing and budgeting for it is a big deal.
Absolutely.
Good. All right, barring any further discussion, do I have a motion for item E, extrication equipment, the fire department to approve this purchase at $20,016?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Bauer, I have a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Bateman is second. Any further discussion? No? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. All right, moving on to the Wild and Scenic Rum River Management District Resolution 2018-46 on Long Night.
Yep, Mayor and Council, before you tonight is Resolution 2018-46. This stems back to a work session we had roughly a month ago. We discussed how in 1977 there was the Rum River District overlay that addresses several parcels of our land that touch the Rum River, not based on size or distance from the river, but parcels as a whole. What this overlay does is set density standards within those parcels. We are finding that these density standards are having a major impact, not only on our river's edge development, which is an immediate need, but to our comp plan and to any future development heading north along the river. What this variance is the first step in a process to request the DNR make a variance towards those overlay standards. We would, from this variance, we would be requesting some changes be made to address the river's edge and maybe look at what he's doing and then also how we're going to step forth in the development going north from there. The first step is this resolution. This will be attached to an application. That application is not yet finalized. This is really the first step, so we just wanted to keep all the pieces moving forward. I would be happy to answer any questions.
So our goal is to get these rural designated as urban, is our goal.
Mayor, Council, if we're not able to change the density of, or the designation of the parcel as a whole, at least get a variance in what the rural designated lots, if we can change that lot size or that density within that designation itself.
So you're looking at from 4 down to 2.5 for the rural parts?
We haven't put those numbers on paper yet. Those will come with the application as we move forward with steps.
Rob?
No questions.
I know we discussed it for Jerry.
Yeah, I have no questions, it's pretty straightforward.
Pretty much. Okay, then do I have a motion to approve Wild and Scenic River, Rum River Management District, Resolution 2018-46?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Mr. Day makes the motion, I have a second.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Palmer makes a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Kate.
Our names are gonna be on the minutes.
Well, I let you guys take the spot there. Anyway, okay, moving on to cost of a living adjustment, COLA, for non-union city employees for 2019. Is that,
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, there's a proposal in front of you tonight for non-union employees for a 3% cost of living adjustment. This would be consistent with the police sergeant and public works unions that have set.
right, we've already had discussion on this. So, any questions right now before we take a motion on it?
No, it's pretty, we've already accepted the workers' unions, so I can't see giving them any less.
Okay, no.
Now, it's my understanding that going forward, we're going to do things a little bit differently, though. Is that what we agreed on? Early in the year, we want to do the non-union staff COLA arrangement first, before we deal with the unions, you know?
Is that what we just discussed, Joe? Or do we?
You know, I know that Robert had talked about it.
There is different strategies to union contracts.
Right, and so that's what I was saying, going forward now, I know we just did a 3-year,
Yeah.
so we won't have to deal with it for 3 years, but, or 2, you know, 2 years.
No, 1 more year.
Yeah.
We'll do it next year, then contracts will be open
Okay.
on the 4th.
No, so just, you know, maybe we keep that in mind, you know.
Let's call negotiate.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? No?
Nope.
All right, do I have a motion of cost of living adjustment COLA for non-union city employees for 2019? In fact, I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Bauer makes that second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. City offices holiday hours. Joe?
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, so Christmas Eve is counted as a half holiday through the city personnel policy. Christmas Day is a full holiday. So the question is, do we want to open Monday morning for a half day? I don't know if people are going to be coming into City Hall for it. I think there's going to be a lot of vacation requests if we do keep it open. I guess I just wanted to hear council's feedback as to their thoughts of opening it for Monday morning.
I'll let you check the calendar. This was Mr. Research.
Now, Mr. Mayor, if I may speak, I don't know anybody that would go into City Hall at Christmas Eve. If they don't have something better to do than, well, you know, I'll be darned if that's where I'm gonna spend my day off, is going into City Hall, so.
Well, you got Christmas Eve on Monday, you got Christmas on Tuesday. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. I mean,
We would need authorization.
I mean, right, but I would think of all the holidays, Christmas, you know, and Easter are the two ones you want to spend with your family. Well, I mean, Thanksgiving, of course, but those are the two biggies, I would think. So,
You know, I'd be in favor of this, Mr. Mayor.
then, Rob, you have anything to say? I'll put you on the
You know, just to process, you know, I wouldn't want to charge the residents tax dollars to keep the city open just for everyone to put in vacation requests and process that. It's a no-brainer. It's already falls as a half day anyway. That's just good.
Well, they got everything else, nothing will be done anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have a motion for the city hours closing on the 24th and 25th? Is that what we're going to do? Fully closed. No half days, full days, okay?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Tadek makes that motion. I, the mayor, will second that motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Now, second time meeting open to the public.
Sarah Edvig.
Sarah.
Sarah Edvig, 70929 Lane, Northwest. I was just gonna let you guys know I was over at the superintendent search meeting tonight. They did approve a slate of 6 candidates.
Down from what?
From 25. They had 25 applicants. We had 20 male and 5 females. They did cut it down to 6 candidates.
Are they out of the district area?
There are no internal applications now. They're 5 of them are from Minnesota, 1 is from Chicago, but did work in the district for a year, long ago. So tomorrow they do their long day interview, so it will be from noon until 8 here. It is open to the public. People want to come to the candidates. Will interview for about an hour. They have 16 questions that they'll be asked that were determined over there this evening. And by the end of tomorrow, they will be down to 2 or 3 candidates. And then they will do interviews with those candidates. Depending on 2 or 3, it would be, if there's 2, it'll just be the 11 and 12. And if there's 3, then it'll be the 13. And there's scheduled times for different community members to come in and talk with the candidates as well.
So of the 6, though, only 1 was worked in the district for a long time ago?
Yes, she worked in the district probably 15 or 20 years ago. She was with us for a year, and our business director, Tim Finn, said she was so overqualified for the position that he was not at all shocked when she left and went to Chicago to work.
Very good job. Thank you for that, for attention. Anybody else? That's it? Okay. Reports, department reports. I don't think we have any, do we? That I see here anyways, okay. Council member reports. Rob, I'll start with you.
I don't really have much. The accident on 47, very, very tragic. In the interim, I would like those lights to be changed. I don't know what that process entails. I think that's a quick and easier fix for drivers to be more aware. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about was that, is we gotta make that change.
Jerry?
Every meeting I sit up here and I say, be careful at night. It's getting dark. Watch for kids. And sometimes it kind of, I don't know if it does any good. I really want our community to, rather than make a decision when emotions are high, that's typically that's not a good time to change public policy or to make policy or to have a knee-jerk reaction. It's good that these emotions are high because it spurs motivation and spurs people to have campaigns to raise awareness and stuff. But I want to caution everybody about saying this is what we're going to do, because it may or may not be the right, just change for the sake of change. I mean, it might be a bad change, but once it's there, we're kind of stuck with it. So, I mean, I would encourage everybody, let's take a deep breath to determine, what the best course of action is. If it's stoplights, if it's roundabouts. I did notice that, we've had some volunteer people out there, all the crossing guards and stuff, and I think that's a great thing.
what I've noticed over the years is volunteerism tends to drop off when they don't, you know, if somebody's not getting paid to stand out there, that's after a while, they're like, I've carried the torch long enough, and they put it down and they expect somebody else to pick up the torch, and it never happens. Here at the city, it's a good example. We don't have a park commission anymore. Nobody wants to volunteer to be on the park commission. You know, so the city council is acting park commission. So volunteerism is a tough thing. It's just a shame. I don't know what the answer is, you know. But I look forward to, you know, hearing for recommendations from MnDOT. Look forward to sitting down with the school board, and, you know, I'm assuming that whatever we do is probably going to be a collaboration with them, since they're on one side of the road and we're on the other. So I look forward to sitting down with them and actually having a discussion, finding out what we can do and what we can't do, what's feasible, and you know, again, I like to think out of the box. I think everything's on the table, up to and including moving the school and building an overpass, or, you know, like everybody says, you know, if there was 16 accidents, you know, we need to find a way to remove those children from the intersection. And if a bridge does that, that's good. If a stoplight does it, that's good. If moving the school does that, you know, that'd be great. So, again, parents, if you're out there listening, teach your kids to push the button. Don't proceed unless you look both ways. The rules of the road haven't changed as far as crossing the road. Only cross when it's safe. Just because you push the button, it doesn't mean you can cross. Make sure that people are stopping. Drivers, look for people. There's a lot of kids that forget to push the button, so just because the lights ain't flashing doesn't mean you just don't look and you go. Even if the lights are flashing. I know sometimes they flash a long time, and I pulled up there and I look and I don't even see anybody and they're flashing. So then I go through slowly, but for gosh sakes, you know, open your eyes, slow down. And I want to remind her, just because the speed limit might be 50 miles an hour going through there, it doesn't mean you have to do 50. You know, I don't think anybody's going to worry if you're only doing 40. It might be, you know, since it's 2 lanes, which that might be an option. You know, maybe we just shut down the other lane and just have 1 lane. So, because I know in the past, if I'm coming around the corner and if I'm only doing 40, and people are frustrated because 47's windy and there's no good place to pass, as soon as they get the 2 lanes, you know, they kick it down and they're doing 65 passing them. So maybe that's what we do. I would encourage the police officers to patrol the area again. You know, I said there's nothing better to make safe drivers than a picture of a cop in your rearview mirror. I mean, boy, I tell you, those guys are legal beagles doing that if a cop's following that. You know, so I'm not opposed to having the police patrol it. My wife owns a grooming shop in Champlin and Dayton. And going down Dayton Road, there is a cop sitting there all day. Everybody knows you don't speed through Champlin. Everybody knows that. The reason why is because they enforce it. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to enforcing. You know, if the speed limit's 50, let's ticket them, and maybe they get out of the ticket, but they got to go to court to do it. I don't know, whatever. But let's, you know, that's a speed limit. That's a speed limit. Let's enforce it. That said, you know, it's a tragedy. You know, I feel bad for the family. I feel bad for the driver. I feel bad for the witnesses. I feel bad for the people that had to come across that accident and help out our first responders and police officers. It's got to be traumatic as a parent, you know. So, you know, I've seen the police officers and firefighters out in town, and I tell them they responded with a great job, and I want to tell you personally. So, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
First of all, I want to thank the public for the input you brought tonight. Very good. I thought it was very well put out there, and you spoke well and brought your points across, and thank you. We listen. We do listen. I will get that number from you at the end of the meeting, Logan. Thank you for that. I also want to thank the police and fire for a great job on that accident. I've talked to Chris Lamont a couple of times. I've been to rallies and stuff like that. All I can say to everybody out there in the viewing world and here locally, you need to keep the flames hot, because if you die down, it's only going to make it worse and it'll go away. Public forgets easily, and that's something we can't do here. We have to keep this flame going until we get a solution. What the solution is going to be, none of us know. Maybe a combination of all things. It may be ending up to be a walk bridge with stoplights for lower speed, with eventually a moving of a high school. I don't know. But all I do know is, again, as Chris Lamont said, time for talking is done. Time for action is now. So we have to get that across to MnDOT, to the state, and everywhere else we can get that and keep that flame high. So as I've stated before, and through my page, my St. Francis Post page, talk to representatives, talk to MnDOT, put the heat on. Bring them, force them to the table to discuss it. And we will check out what was brought to our attention at the meeting open to the public here, and we'll make those calls tomorrow to see where it goes and all that. And if we get the grant money, I have no problem. I'm sure this council doesn't spending money on a bridge to get it done. If it takes it for us to do it, great. I'm all for it. Wish we would have been notified of that earlier, but we weren't. So I'm not going to look back in the past and put blame anywhere. Key to a mistake is making it so you learn from a mistake, but you don't repeat it, not keep repeating it. So if we learn anything from a lesson here, we need to keep a flame under MnDOT. We need to be proactive or preemptive and get the things done that we know should be done at the local level that they forget when they're at the state capitol versus at the federal level. So we need to bring attention to us here. Once again, and I think it might be just a matter of lighting up the area better, lower speeds, stop signs, bridges. I don't know. I think it's going to be a combination of a lot of things before it all gets said and done. But something has to be done, no doubt. I want to wish everybody coming up here the holidays be safe as the holidays come up in that. Also, keep abreast of the city and all that. Anything that we posted there, again, St. Francis Post page is my page. Any other Facebooks and all that. I know there's one in St. Francis. What's the one in St. Francis right now?
What's going on in St. Francis?
What's going on in St. Francis? Keep on that. Check that out. You'll find out about what activities are going on, or rallies, or anything going on about this accident, stuff like that. Once again, I can't emphasize enough to keep the flame hot for as long as possible, because that's going to bring them to the table. It's going to bring them to discussing it, because I don't see right now how they can avoid discussing it now. Anyways, wish Annie and Kia a fast recovery and a full recovery. I know that Annie's home right now. I know Kay is still in the hospital, but her tube has been disconnected, and she's not on any hard drugs right now, just on oxycodone, I understand. So let's hope and pray for her that she'll be fine, and both the girls will have full recovery. And hopefully someday they can walk down 47 and know that the changes they made on 47, they had a lot to do with, and they're alive to see it. That's a huge, huge deal. So once again, I want to commend again the public for coming forth and bringing up those concerns. This council does listen, and we will act. So thank you so much. Any other business that this council needs to dictate or do at this time? Well, then on that, I will call this meeting adjourned at 17. Thank you.